Hello, everybody. Hi, Dave.
Hello, wait a minute. What's going on? Let me see.
Yeah, your webcam.
There we go.
I can't see you.
You can't?
Mm,
Hold on.
there.
I'm-
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I figured that you, hold on, I'm turning the volume up a little. I figured you must have run out of good people to talk to, so I drew the short straw, so
No, no,
I'm
no, no.
excited.
I tried to. I've said this so many times before. I tried. Oh, what happened there? Hello, Madam Queen Bee. Thank you for being here. Hold on. He must have tapped. Cheryl, hello. Thank you guys for being here. What happened?
I have no idea. I had a tablet here and I was trying to decide whether I was going to use my phone or a tablet. And I went to just sort of shut it down because I thought I'll just use the phone and I accidentally hit it. So it was joining your live, which was taking me off of, it put me live on the tablet for a split second. Anyway, we'll close the other technology. I'm ready to roll.
I actually also shared this live stream on my Facebook. So hello, Facebook people.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Okay, so we all know that Father's Day is coming up. I believe it's a Sunday, right? So
It
that's going to be
is.
one of the things that we're going to be talking about. But for you guys who doesn't know the backstory of why Dave D is here, well, it's just like one of the things. There was this one time. When was this? Like last year? What,
I thought you were gonna say there was this one time at band camp. I thought, wait a minute, what kind of interview is this?
no, no, no. Like the pay it forward, you guys.
I remember.
Yeah. So he actually gave $100 because he was touched by this one girl. Was it because of Elizabeth, that one
Yeah,
homeless?
it was Elizabeth. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that time. And I always thought that, Greg and I always thought that your content is very inspiring and it's such a great addition to the social media, specifically here on TikTok. I'm not so sure if you have Instagram account.
I'm actually so I'm on Instagram and that's like Dave D on IG, I think. And then I'm on Facebook with the same name, although there's like hardly Instagram has some stuff. Facebook when I just kind of started recently, at least for the social media part of it for this kind of stuff. So there's not a lot of stuff on there yet. I'm kind of trying to get up to speed on it. But so if you find me on Facebook, you'll probably be woefully disappointed. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay. Why don't we start with when you started here on TikTok? Was it specifically the platform TikTok that you started the social media?
Yeah, this kind of stuff. I mean, I've got, Facebook and Instagram for like all the family stuff from when the kids were little and all that normal, you
Oh,
know, the real world stuff sort of. And then my daughter during COVID, which I think is a tale that a lot of people that are like really active on not just this platform, but a lot of platforms
yeah. Hmm.
started during COVID because people were stuck at home. You didn't have anything to do. So my daughter, who's now 19, she was
Hmm.
probably 16 at the time. She's like, Dad, you need to like start a TikTok account. I'm like, for what? Like I really was like, I couldn't really see it. And because see, she had asked me, and I think when she first asked to get on it, it wasn't even called TikTok. I think it was Musically or something. Is that what it was before?
I'm not so
I
sure because
believe.
Plain Catch is only 2 years old.
Okay, so I think it was Musically. I might be wrong. Somebody will maybe correct us in the comments here.
Hmm.
But she had asked about getting on. I'm like, what is it? She goes, oh, it's just an app that like kids they dance on and they do whatever, right? And then it became TikTok. So when she wanted to be on it, well, my wife's like, you go ahead, because one of us wanted to sort of monitor what was going on and like see what it was all about. So we got on, and I did a video with her and her boyfriend at the time, just goofing around. And then she's like, well, you need to get an account. And so I started an account, and we posted the same video that was on her account, which got like 150 views on her account and got like 1,000 views on mine. And she's like, it got like 700 immediately, which is just because you know how the algorithm, sometimes it's just, oh, here's a newbie, let's push that, you know. And so she goes, you need to do it. So I started an account, and then it was, I mean, I hate to say something so cheesy as the rest was history, but that's kind of what happened. I mean, it was just, you know.
But when was this?
This was probably, it's been 3 years, a little over 3 years now. Well, actually just about 3 years, because it was in May, I think, of 21, when it started. Because, you know, the on this day videos that pop up, like I get them back as far as 2021 sometimes, and I can go back and see. And it was just a kind of a thing to do to pass the time. And now, to be honest, it's almost like therapeutic. I mean, I think you guys probably feel the same way, but it's cheaper than a shrink. And, you know,
I've heard a lot of people say that too, but
yeah, I mean,
you know, there are like different parts of the social media, but it's not something that we're going to talk about. But for the followers of Dave, I'm sure you guys can agree that when you feel like the world is so dirty, like you go to his page and you just feel revived. So about the whole good vibes niche, love and positivity, kindness, and all that stuff. When did that start? Because you said here that you got here on TikTok for 3 years now.
Yeah, so basically when my daughter talked me into it, and it's funny because in her bio it says my dad has more followers than I do, you know, and she put that like right at the beginning. But it's kind of you know, when you know how you start, you just your For You page ends up with you get a lot of like bigger creators that just sort of pop onto your page. And so this was kind of in the and I don't know if everybody knows who these people are, but like Scott D. Henry and Rich B. and Ed Dudes and JT Lamore, and these guys were all like this positivity band of brothers, so to speak. And I think there's probably been minor drama here and there, like is usually the case, especially as all their platforms like really blew up. But just the message of just kind of, I mean, at a time when, you know, everybody was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired, I guess, you know, with COVID and everything going on. It was just kind of a way to, like I said, it was therapeutic for me because I could sit and get into a conversation with somebody and walk away so frustrated afterwards. And, you know, I kind of try to tell people, and we might talk about, like you said, the side gig at some point with the referees, but you try to tell people to control what they can control, like focus on the things you can control and try not to give too much time and energy to the things that you have no control over, because all that's going to do is stress you out anyway. So that's kind of how it started. And honestly, like I can remember, I think I want to say I had like 47 followers.
At that time.
Like when it started, like at the very beginning, and I had duetted a video that Scott and Rich B did, which was this thing where they would find a store name that fit like a cheesy theme that they were, whatever it was, like they'd actually find a store name. So they were talking about some like awards thing, and this was pre-Cheer Choice, I think. And it was there was a store in the area that I live called In the Bag, and it was a store that carried like travel bags and suitcases and stuff like that. And so I just kind of did this over my shoulder thing and said, well, I think if they ever give an award for the most positive, like uplifting guys on social media, I said, if that award's out there, then I'm pretty sure for you guys. And I just pointed and said, it's In the Bag. And they both like died laughing, both followed me, both just like, so when people give some of those guys a bad name and say, well, they don't follow anybody, you know, they only follow people that have like huge accounts. They both followed me and I didn't even have 50 followers. It's just kind of how it hits. And if you get lucky here and there, and you know how it is, you can do a video that you and Greg probably think is hilariously amazing and it goes nowhere. And then you do another one that you don't even feel that great about, and it's got like hundreds of thousands of views. You know, it's just, and personally, like I'll confess here, you heard it here first.
Okay.
I sometimes feel like a complete fraud on the app because I do things that are just me, maybe talking or whatever, saying something about whether it's, something about church or whatever. There's stuff I'll do where I just am commentating myself, or I'm lip syncing something myself, or I'm duetting somebody that I'm lip syncing. And then there's other things where the things that seem to get the most views for me are the ones when it's somebody else's, I'm duetting a video and it'll blow up, like for no particular reason. I did an On This Day one like 3 days ago that's got, I don't know, 1.7 million views, and it's like, it's the one with the little girl doing the swimming lessons, right? And it's sweet, it's adorable, and so I said, do you know Susan Morris? She does all the Little Johnny videos and all that. She's got like she's been at 1.9 million followers on this app for like 2.5 years.
I mean, speaking of Lil Johnny, I mean, Lil Johnny is the son, right? But then the dad is Jeremy Little. Jeremy Little was actually scheduled to be interviewed here, but
Oh, really?
I guess he got so busy. I'll get back to him. I don't want to bother him too much, but it's crazy that you mentioned that. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, Susan does all these Little Johnny videos where she plays every part in the video and just uses different filters and stuff. And Susan had said, because I told her, I said, I actually met her once when I went up to Northern California for a basketball thing, which I'm actually doing tomorrow again. And we just met. We only started for about an hour and a half, but it was like great to kind of just meet in person and, be able to it's not, when you say put a name to the face, it's like we all know each other's faces because we see each other on the app. But to actually sit there and shake a hand or hug somebody and be like, hey, it's really good to see you. The app has been really weird about, like, you wouldn't think that people would form the kinds of sort of bonds and friendships that they have formed. And yet there are people that, like, I truly look at as family. I mean, I visited and have met a few people, but there are people that I would truly, like, if I was like, okay, you have 25 people to invite to something, there's people on this platform or Facebook, whatever, that would make the list without hesitation. So, I mean, in that respect, I think at a time when it really kind of blew up, when people that were a little bit older, like, I mean, I'm older than you, I'm sure, but when grown-ups all of a sudden hit TikTok and started doing some of these other types of posts and content, it changed for a lot of people. It opened up a whole new, like, world, I think, of friends and connections. And when I said about I feel like a fraud, it's like somebody's video is a great video, and I'll sit there and duet it, and maybe sometimes I make comments on it. Sometimes there's nothing to be said because you wanted to hear the exact audio. And Susan's thing is she says, no, she said, it's something about the way you spin it or you present it or you say it, whatever. She said, it just comes across sincere. And I'm like, you're my friend, you have to say those things. But it's just kind of, I look at people who are on this app, like you and Greg, you guys do stuff and you guys are hilarious. And I think, there's really talented people. And then there's me. It's like, and I don't fit into that category necessarily, but it's fun. It's been a lot of fun getting to meet and know people that I probably never otherwise would have come across.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying because, just like what you said about being here, like we see each other here on this platform, but it's like there's a bond that you create with people that you meet here that you wouldn't think to be possible when you meet people, like bump into each other at the store or at the street.
Right.
But the thing that, I mean, I could be biased because, we've known here through this app, but I've seen some of your contents. It's all about uplifting people's spirits, like if you feel like you're having a bad day, and then we listen to what you have to say based on, even if it's just a duet, like you make a commentary about this particular video that went viral, and then it goes viral on your page too.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing because, I mean, like I've seen just some of your videos, but it seems like you're very consistent with how you're really keeping up that positivity niche.
Yeah, I mean, I try. Thank you. I mean, I that's the goal. So, so I'm glad that's coming across that way. I think that, like, there's stuff that I'll do with, like, friends will say, hey, duet this or whatever, and there's stuff that I'll do that's a little more like edgy, but I try to not have, like, just F-bomb laden stuff going on. There's been things that I've done, like, myself, or I've said something, whether it was something that I either thought was funny or whatever, and I intentionally like won't say something that I think probably would get more views. You know what I mean? It's like, we've all been there where it's like, well, if you say the F word 18 times, you're probably going to get seen. Or if you're, you know, if you're a girl and you're hardly dressed, well, you're going to go viral. And it's just like, and nobody wants to see me hardly dressed. But the point is, is that like, you know, I've got my kids are, you know, my daughter's 19, my son's 16. We've got an older one that's adopted, not adopted, who's 26 or 27. They've all got different friends or connections that follow, and they don't necessarily follow me, but they see the stuff, right? And it's like, and I
kind of like silent followers.
yeah, I mean, because especially with the younger kids, like most of them, they don't comment. Like my daughter will put up a video and it's pretty funny, and I'm looking at it thinking like, huh, I'll do the same video and get a lot more engagement than she'll get. She'll get a bunch of views maybe, and some likes, but hardly any comments. Like they don't say, they just watch. They're all like voyeurs. They don't do anything. They don't like engage hardly at all. And that's not a knock. I think that's just generational. That's just what they do. Whereas, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. It's your show. Go ahead.
No. Because I really wanted to know, like, I'm sure like there's a lot of creators that you look up to. I don't know if you've seen that one time that I interviewed Steve Wiltz, Ripple Time. He's very big here.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't see it, but yeah, I know he is.
So along with that interview, he mentioned creating wonders. Apparently, he got some inspiration from him, and pretty much, well, it's kind of like the same but different type of niche, because Steve Wiltz is all about like marriage humor, kind of like with Greg and me. Mm-hmm. And then creating wonders is all about like kind of like yours, but he like does talking. So
and he's got that great voice too. He's got that amazing voice.
Like a DJ voice, right? So you know him, creating wonders.
Oh yeah, I know he is. Yeah, he does great. Him and his like, you know, he says his thing, and then he'll just boom disappear out of the car.
Or like he drops.
No, he's great, and I've done a few things of like lip sync things or just audio stuff that he's done. You know, it's the thing that honestly, like, and you might feel this way. There's so many different, like people say, well, what's your niche? I don't know that I have one. I guess it's like people would say, well, most of the videos I do, I'm sitting in my car, right? I might, because I'm just in the car. And so that's kind of like, but it's not, I wouldn't call that a niche, because it could be a lip sync. It could be me saying something. It could be me duetting something. It's kind of all over the place. What's amazing to me about this app, and not just this app, but all the, you know, the social media apps that are like this, where you've got people posting like original content, there are so many like ridiculously talented people in so many different areas. Like not just people that are funny, or not just people who like, you know, people that are singers that, you know, vocally, they just like Abby Carter that I mentioned in that one video a couple back, that just won American Idol. She's from like right, literally a few miles away. And we saw her in a restaurant just gigging, playing the piano and singing. My wife and I and another couple, we went out to dinner, and we're like, this girl's really good. And during one of the breaks of in her set, I went up and I put some money in her tip jar, and I said, are you like, do you have an album? Who are you? Like, and what I wanted to say is, what are you doing singing here? Like, it was way better than just singing in some restaurant. And she's like, oh, and she was probably 18 or 19 at the time. And she's like, oh, I'm just trying to get my music out there. And so she gave me a little card that had her Instagram handle on it. And I started following her, and it's Abby Carter. And then here we are. And it's like to see someone like her who it's like, and it's not like me going like, you know, I knew her when. I mean, in the video, I kind of make a joke and say, I'm not saying it's, you know, but it's like she won, Richard Goodall got the golden, I don't know, there could be a connection. It might be me, but it's not me. It's just nice to see people getting an opportunity that without social media, like now an artist can start putting things out on social media and they can become huge before anybody even knows who they are. You know, they can just grow and grow and grow. And all of a sudden, then they get an opportunity because they've now been, it's like you're doing an audition tape every time you throw something up. And then there's people that are literally lip syncing to other people's audio, but they're so good at it and they're so funny. The expressions, I mean, a lot of the stuff you and Greg do is using some audio. And you guys absolutely nail it because your chemistry is there and you can see that you guys have a great relationship. people always ask me, how come your wife's never in your videos? And it's like, she's been in a couple and she would kill it. Like, she was a dance teacher for years. She's super like theatrical and all that stuff. She'd probably like smash it, but she just is like, she doesn't care that I do it. But, you know, I envy sometimes like you guys, and you've got this relationship where you can do it together and it's fun and all that. She just laughs at the fact that like people at, you know, she's a teacher, so people will come up to her and go, oh, I saw Dave's latest post. And she's just like, oh my gosh. You know?
Okay, you mentioned earlier your 3 kids. So all of them have social media accounts too, right?
Yeah, they do.
How do they feel about you being here on social media?
So the oldest, who's ours, not ours, right? We kind of took him in. He was a stowaway from church, basically. He wasn't in like an abusive situation, but it was just one of those situations where there were way too many heads in that particular house. And so we had some space and we had gotten to know him. The pastor at our church was like, you know, how can I keep track of him? And he was going to be a freshman at the school my wife teaches at. So she's like, oh, I can stalk him like all day, every day. She can get on the computer and see where he is. It kind of started there. So his junior year, we actually went to his grandmother, who was his legal guardian, and said, how would you feel if he moved in with us just for like the rest of high school? Just so there's, you know.
How old was he when this happened?
He had just turned 17. So he was a junior. It was like December of his junior year. So he had the rest of his junior year and all of his senior year. But he ended up living with us for like 3 or 4 years after that too. Like, he just stayed. He went to, he was the first boy in his family that ever graduated from high school. He was just looking at high school graduation. And of course, my wife being a teacher, she's like your grades are pretty good now that you have a chance to study. Like, if you want to go on and do more, you probably could. He'd never even thought about going to college. So he went to the local community college. He got his AA degree. He just got back from Paris. He was working the French Open. He's very talented with like photo and video stuff. So he was working for the Tennis Channel at the French Open tennis tournament. He gets back a couple days ago, and then he just flew down to New Mexico to go do photos for a wedding for some good friends of ours. And then my daughter's working. She's working at this restaurant where it feels like she works like 26 hours a day. I don't know if she really does, but she's really like working a lot, you know, but she's loving it. She's killing it. And then the youngest, who's 16, this morning at 3 a.m., we had to have him at the airport because he's on a school trip on his way to Japan right now.
Wow.
So what this does is this just points out in just incredible detail what losers my wife and I are, because we go nowhere and our kids are all over the place crushing it. And we're just like, I'm going up to Northern California because that's an exotic destination. But, you know, I mean, the kids, as far as how they feel, the oldest, he thinks it's cool. Like, he doesn't care. He'll comment now and then, and he's fine with it. My daughter loves it, of course, because she's the one, it's her fault, basically. That's what I always tell people. She's the one who got me started on it and convinced me of it. My son, I think, legitimately unfollowed me a while ago because, he's at that age where it's like, most likely nothing I say is going to be cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for his friends and his age group, he's got some friends who have like made comments and said, hey, I follow your dad. And he just goes, oh my God. And it's not because I'm doing anything that I think that he's ultimately embarrassed about. It's just one of those things where it's like, So, but nobody like criticizes it or hates it or anything like that. My son could take it or leave it. My daughter thinks it's the coolest thing. And the oldest one is like, you do you, Dad. He doesn't care. So.
Okay, so it seems like your kids are all grown ups. Like,
pretty much.
Yeah, because it's almost Father's Day. What's your proudest moment as a dad of 3?
I think that's a really good question. I think that it's, so for the one that was adopted, not adopted, right? The one that's not ours, it was at the beginning, it wasn't rough. It was just for him to kind of assimilate. He's Hispanic. We're not. So, I mean, it was like one of those things where it's like culturally, I'm sure it was a little bit of a adjustment. but he now has come around to the point where we're mom and dad. If you get off the phone and don't say love you, bye, he's like going to give you shade over it and say like, what's the matter? You don't love me anymore. You know, he's really kind of assimilated into that whole thing. The main thing that like I think my wife and I really focus on, it's like everybody, it'd be great if everybody would grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer or like cure cancer or something like that. But I'm more interested, and I think my wife would echo, we just wanted to be like good humans. Like we wanted to be good people so that they can sort of self-sustain. My daughter, when she was in school, was she's outspoken enough. She knows what she thinks or believes or whatever that may be, right? And I told her, I said, look, you can believe, think, vote, do whatever you want, however you want. I said, just make sure if you're going to take a position on something, make sure that you can defend it.
Yeah.
Don't just say just because my friend said or I saw it on TV or whatever. Make sure you know and you've thought enough about it that you can defend it. And that's really like I would say probably because I think they all three do that. So that's probably the proudest, what makes me the most proud is that I think that they're going to all be successful individuals in like whatever they do. And that's kind of, my wife was really frustrated because initially my daughter's like, I don't know if I want to go to college right away. And she graduated a year early from high school, so she was young. And she just kind of worked a couple part-time jobs. And then she got this job, which is in event planning and stuff that she's always said she wanted to do. And she's killing it. And, got like a nice raise, you know what I mean? Like she's doing really well. And my wife kind of came around and she's like, well, and we talked to a couple people that are in education, that are in educational programs that deal with like the event coordination piece. Mm-hmm. And they're like, right now, she's got a better job than most people that graduate get. Yeah. So don't discourage her. Let her keep doing her thing. And if she decides she needs some advanced degree, she'll go get it. We believe in education completely. Like we want our kids to be as educated as they can be. But at the same time, there's only so much we can do as parents, right? Like they're going to do what they're going to do. And so you just want to try to guide them. And then once you push them out of that nest, you got to hope that they'll, do the right thing.
It's really crazy. I don't know if I can like talk about this. I know that you saw that comment, and I'm not gonna talk about this because I'm acknowledging the negative comment. It's really crazy because I would like to say that Plain Cash and Dave D both, and Angela. I don't know if you know Angela. She's here too in the comment section.
Yeah.
Her
I
and
saw
her
that
mom
comment.
are
Thanks,
hilarious. Like, I would like to put us in the same category that our existence here on social media is all about like giving that good feeling to our audience.
Yeah.
But when there are some tiny specks of people who just wants to come into the comment section just to say something,
right.
It's like if positivity is not your thing, go somewhere where there's people are fighting. I know
you know what happens. I mean, I know what you're getting at, and what I think really happens is that there are. I look at it like it's like swinging at a pitch in the dirt, right? Like if you put a baseball reference on it, it's like you can stand up to bat all you want, and if the ball's bouncing on home plate and you keep swinging at it, you're really not going to hit it. And if you do, you're not going to hit it anywhere good, and it's like, it just gets to a point where there are people, and I see it all the time where I'll see on other people's, whether it be a live or just on a video that they'll post. And there's just all these negative comments. And most of the time when you go and you check the profile, there's like one follower, zero. There's no, because most of the time these are just recreated accounts that are just designed to go in and try to throw negativity around. And honestly, like the less attention, it's like, I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, I joke, and some of the stuff I put up is like kind of Gen X type content where it's like, Gen X has this reputation for just not even caring, it's like, whatever, you think whatever you want to think. And there's some truth to that. But I also think that like, Gen X is also a really caring generation because it's just, and I had a thing a couple of weeks ago, I guess, where it was like, we really just don't, just don't suck as a human. Like, just be a good person, because it doesn't matter. Like, if you think about, if you spend too much time, like just wallowing in the news, and I'm not saying don't be informed and don't watch the news, but if you just consume and consume and consume all the negativity that's out there, well, you start to turn a little bit black of heart, just piece by piece. It eats away at you. And it's like when you have a conflict with somebody and you're like, I'm not going to talk to them anymore. Well, they probably don't care, but you're sitting there holding it all in, and you're the one who's really getting eaten away because you're still mad and they've moved on. They're like, okay, peace, see you. I'm doing my thing. So it's like, it doesn't generally pay to give all that too much attention, because and they're literally just trying to get a reaction. They're trying to get a rise out of somebody. And if they don't get one here, they'll go to the next one and try to do it there.
Yeah, well, here's our reaction. And, I wasn't, most of the time, the people on the comment section are actually very, respecting to everybody who's up here on this Clean Catch Voice interview. But it's really crazy because now that, I'm just going to take this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
I just look at it as, we don't have that many viewers. I know I can see you guys, like when I end the live, I can see exactly the amount of people who watched it backdoor. So it doesn't really matter. The thing that I really like about doing this is when I have people come up here, like you guys, whether you guys are watching backdoor or not, at the end of the interview, you're going to feel good about what you hear, what my guests are talking about by the time this interview is done. It's like when the world is so fed up with all the screaming and the cussing and the fighting and everything, there's a certain point where people are just like, I'm so tired of doing this. It's kind of like going to work and you just want to, your end goal is to retire and have that peace of mind.
Right. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's like you get tired of just being like, just everything just keeps pushing down on you. And like I said, you go to the store and have an interaction with somebody that you don't know. You don't know who they voted for or who they're going to vote for, or you don't know what religion they are, or even if they have a religion. You don't know anything. You don't know their sexual orientation. You don't know anything. And you can be walking down an aisle and somebody can go, hey, how are you? And you can say, great, how are you?
Yeah.
You don't have to know all those things to just be nice to people. And it's like, to me, and like for me to sit here and say, oh, well, we're just helping people all over the world. Look, I'm realistic about the numerical, you know what I mean? Like you can sit here and look at the numbers and say, well, that's a lot of people that maybe follow your account or my account or some of these other accounts, because people say, oh, you've got all these followers. Yes and no, because if you look at like people with millions of followers, right? And there's people that have, like, I'm amazed. There's people with 5,000 followers, 6,000 followers. They've had this number for years, it seems like, since I've been on the account, and their stuff is brilliant. And I don't know why it doesn't blow up more. I don't know. I always try to engage and interact and share and do whatever I can do. But the algorithm, the one thing you know for sure about the algorithm, I'll give you the key to the algorithm. Ready? It changes every 5 minutes. Like anytime somebody thinks they've got it figured out, I guarantee you there's some guy behind there writing code to change it up so that you don't have it figured out. You think you got it? No, you don't, because they change it. So rather than worry about playing that game, I just try to be consistent with the messaging, and just as bad as things might be, it's probably not as bad as you think. There's always somebody who's got it worse. There's always something to be thankful for and to be grateful for. And those comments, and I'm sure you've gotten them too, where it's like, it's just that comment that'll come across that says, you know what, I was having a crummy day and I just saw this and it really made me smile. Thank you. And I'm like, done and done. And if it could be one comment in a day or in a week, and I'll be like, that's why I'm doing this. And it's not my job. Like, it's not the only thing I do. But it makes a difference. You know what I mean? It's like, and if it helps one person smile, then mission accomplished, for that day. I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
I'm sure you can agree that it's a lot easier I think I even said this on one of the contents that I posted here, that it's a lot easier to piss people off than to try to make somebody laugh. And it's really crazy because with that being said, we, Clean Cash, Dave D, Angela, and her mom, we're not exactly working so hard to be consistent with our Good Vibes niche because that's who we are as people. But then all these other people are just going to come in and say, oh, your stuff is boring or
Yeah.
whatever. It's really sad because you can't tell me that all of us are living each day like before you go to bed, you're just like thinking, how can I piss off somebody tonight?
Right.
I don't think that's how we think.
Well,
I think
and the other thing is too is that like I'm going to go out on a limb here. I might be completely off base. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and said that at one time or another in your marriage with Greg that you guys have disagreed or had a little argument or a spat. At least one time, I bet, right?
I've talked about this so many times. Like, there's nothing
It's
perfect
like
in a relationship. We argue like heck.
exactly
Ashamed of it because that's
being
there's
human.
no way. There's no way that a couple who's been married for almost 20 years, or you
Right.
guys longer than ours, that you guys haven't fought about something.
It
Or
happens. And the difference is because every relationship is going to have that. It doesn't even have to be a marriage or a romantic relationship. It can just be a friendship. I mean, every relationship, work relationships, there's always going to be those bumps in the road. And the key is not to avoid them. The key is how you negotiate them. How do you deal with them? And do you realize that, like somebody told me once, and he's actually a marriage and family therapist, but he's a friend of mine that I knew from college. And we were playing in the golf tournament once, and he just said, he said the thing that would solve most marital problems is if when people argue or fight, if they would just fight fair, meaning just
or you can go back to what you were saying, but or you could add for me silent treatment. Just like keep it like together until
okay. No, that's a good point. But I mean, because that's knowing though. That's knowing you and your personality and like what's like, because you might say, if I say it, it's not going to go well, right? You might be like, you're going to say it. And then in your world, that may not be fighting fair because you might know all the buttons to push regarding Greg. And so you guys get into an argument and you bring up dun, 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 dun. And all of a sudden, if you just go at him, well, now you've created a bigger hole than whatever the whole thing was about to begin
it
with.
wasn't there in the first
It wasn't even there. You just put more into it. So if in your world, it's like, that's the better way to, then that's what you do. And really it's like, if you're in a disagreement or an argument, it's like, is the goal that you want to be in that disagreement or an argument forever? The problem is we all want to win, right? We all want to win. We're competitive by nature. So if we're in an argument, it's like, well, I'm going to want to make sure I make the last. And that's why, and this is what cracks me up because my daughter is my wife, like not like in an Arkansas. That's not what I mean. She's just the same person. Like their DNA map is probably identical. And my son and I will sit there at dinner sometimes, the younger one that's still at the house, and they'll start going back and forth about something, and we'll just look at each other like,
she is so like you.
oh, well, they just the way they go at each other, and that's the problem. Like they will often do this because they're too similar. Mm-hmm. And my son and I are a little more like, don't sweat the small stuff. So when my wife and I have a disagreement, we might disagree about something, but there's a point where I'm just like, and it's not a matter of me going, okay, honey, you're right, like patronizing her. That doesn't work either. That just makes her more mad. But I mean, the point is that you get to a point where you've got to realistically want to get past the disagreement in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes think that because, we do this kind of stuff and we're posting stuff and, you guys put all this stuff up that's just hilarious content about real life things that happen in a relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's real life stuff. And yes, is all of that happening in your relationship the moment you post that video? Of course not. That's not the point. The point is that life is messy. It just is. It's messy. And what's really important is just how do you navigate it? How do you avoid the potholes and how do you avoid stepping in stuff you don't want on your shoes? You know what I mean? It's like you have to navigate it, and it's all about how you deal with it. And sometimes you do everything right and life still smacks you in the face.
Okay, well, now that we're kind of like talking about this, what do you think of that? Well, in the Philippines, like there's this saying that older people would say, now that you're married, one thing that really helps a marriage is that don't go to bed when you guys are upset at each other.
Don't go to bed angry.
You have to like fix it that night before you go to sleep. But with me and Greg, being married for almost 20 years, I've talked about this in the other interview that I've done. I'm so sorry, but I don't agree with that. It just doesn't work. Like,
So, I mean, there's also a saying that says, why don't you go sleep on it? And you know what I mean? Like, so you could say, don't go to bed angry, but there's also that thing where you sleep on it and maybe you get some more perspective because you get that quiet time. You
yeah.
know, I mean, I think it depends on the dynamic. And I think that honestly, if you really look at like just human nature, sometimes people find each other and they're very similar in the way they think. And if they're very similar, then don't go to bed angry might work, right? Because they're going to sit there and hash it out and go, okay, you know what? I don't want to go to sleep like this, da 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 da. Let's talk about it tomorrow. But they come to some kind of a common ground so that everybody can go to sleep. Then there's people that are complete opposites that end up finding each other too. Or there's the introvert finds the extrovert. Like I'm the introvert, obviously. No, I'm kidding. My wife is the introvert. Like we'll go to places and she literally will, like she'll ask me to go to things that she's not super comfortable going to because she knows that she's not going to have a bunch of external interaction because I will, because I'll just start talking to people. We had a couple nights ago, we went to one of her coworkers was retiring. So they had this little get together at a restaurant. And I know some of these people, but not all of them. And she's been there 20 something years at that school. So I've known a lot of them for a while. But we go and as we're leaving, she just laughs. And I said, what? And she said, I just think it's hilarious how all my coworkers like my husband more than they like me. And I said, that's not true, honey. It's not that they like me more. It's that you're happy to sit back and have that little one-on-one conversation over in the corner with somebody. And I'm just, for whatever reason, naturally holding court, taught 5 or 6 people, and we're having a big conversation and laughing and having a good time. So when it's not always that you find someone like you. You might have common goals or common beliefs and that kind of thing, but it doesn't mean personality-wise you're the same. So you have to figure out what that dynamic is. So sometimes I think there's nothing wrong with, going to bed and realizing, because what it does do is if you never go to bed angry, right? Then
This is even like if it meant like one of you guys will sleep on the couch.
yeah, well, okay. We've never had that happen. I haven't been thrown out of the room yet, but if you never go to bed angry, like if you go to bed and you're still kind of upset or whatever the issue is still festering a little bit, you wake up and maybe you start to realize and take sort of a second stock of, well, we've got a pretty good relationship. We've got a pretty good life. We've got a pretty, you know what I mean? And it gives you an opportunity to feel like, okay, I don't like the way that felt. I don't like going to bed like that with that lonely feeling, and even if you're, you can be almost more lonely if you stay in the same bed and you're angry at each other than if you're out on the couch, because that vibe that's in the room, like everybody's turned opposite ways, and, so.
I mean, I talked about this too. I'm sure a lot of married couples can relate to this. At one point when, like I'm not going to say your husband, I'm just going to go ahead and name him Greg.
Yeah.
Like, when Greg just
He is.
like, he doesn't want to because I would tell him I can't do this right now. Can you sleep on the couch? And he's like, no, I'm comfortable here on the bed. So I'm the one who ends up sleeping on the couch, and it's okay.
And he's in there going like, like I won that battle.
No, because it's okay. Because it's like, if you really wanted to have that space, it's okay. It's not because you are like very hateful with your spouse. It's not about that.
And you know what? People argue. They just do. People argue. So it's like when people sit there, and I always joke, we laugh about the Instagram family or the Facebook family, like everything's perfect in the pictures. You know what I mean? And usually the ones where the family looks perfect on social media, they're the biggest disasters. Like there's more dysfunctionality going on in there, but there's such a desire to make sure that everything looks good and everybody thinks everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Newsflash, there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. There's no such thing as a perfect family. Every family has their garbage. Every family has their victories and their losses. That's just life. And it's like the more relatable and the more honest people are about that, the better. I mean, I'll be honest, my wife had a real hard time because my daughter didn't want to immediately go to college. And she thought that was like some kind of horrible thing. And I'm like, honey, she graduated a year early for starters, so she's already younger. I said, I'm not that excited about her being 17 running around a college campus with a bunch of 19-year-old college freshmen. I mean, not that she was going to get attacked. I'm saying it's just one of those things that as a dad, you're like, no, we can wait a year or two. I'm okay for that.
Yeah.
But she was so worried about the perception of it. And I'm like, she's going to be fine, because I'll tell you a quick story. When my daughter was like minutes old, and I'm not joking, she was minutes old. Like it was, and the oldest is not ours, right? So she was the first one that we had biologically. So, and I looked all over. There's no manual. There's no QR code to scan to figure out what the instructions are for raising a kid. There's nothing like that. So my wife says, go with Emma, go with the baby. And so this older labor and delivery nurse, she's probably in her early 60s. She's clearly seen some things, right? She's been doing it a long time. She's cleaning her up, and we're off in this other room. And she's holding her by the small of her back, so she's facing up. And I'm just counting fingers and toes, right, to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be.
Everything's there.
Right, exactly. And so she's cleaning her up while she's on her back, while she's facing up. Then she turns her over, and she's holding her under her belly, so she's kind of in the Superman position,
Uh-huh.
And while she's cleaning her up, the nurse goes, "Oh my." And I'm like, "What?"
What?
I already counted, like, stuff's where it's supposed to be. And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "Oh my." And I'm like, "What?" I'm starting to get really freaked out. And she goes, "This is a strong-willed young lady." And I'm like, she's 7 minutes old. I'm like, "How do you know that?" And she's like, and she looked at me like I had literally just like questioned everything she'd ever done in her life. She's like, she shot me this glare, like, "How dare you question me? I've been doing this forever." And I said, "But how do you know that?" And she said, "Look what she's doing." Well, she was like this, flat, straight out. And she was lifting her head and looking around, but her eyes weren't even open yet. And so she kind of looked like a turtle, like doing this. And she goes, "Do you know how much strength it takes to do that? And you're not 10 minutes old?" She said, "I'm telling you, get ready. She's going to test you." And I'm like, looking at her, and I'm like, "Well, fantastic. This is our first kid, and you've already told me it's going to be a disaster." She goes, "It's not going to be a disaster." She goes, "She's going to test you." But then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "All the things that are going to make her a handful to raise are also the things that will probably keep her from getting taken advantage of in other situations." And I'm like, and I tell you, if I could find that lady right now, I would be like,
I was actually gonna say, have
she
you?
retired. Like, she wasn't still there when we had our son, like 3 years later. So I was like, I was asking, like, where did she go? They're, "Oh, she retired. She moved to somewhere," and all this stuff. And I'm like, I would love to be able to just see her and go, "Nailed it. Like, you absolutely nailed it." Because, yeah, there were challenges, and she was pretty strong-willed and stubborn, but she handles her business. She doesn't take any crap from people. She, not in an aggressive, negative way, but like she's in this job where she's supervising people that are 35 and 40 years old. She's like 19. And they love her and they respect her. And I'm like, "You just keep doing you, And I'm like, that nurse nailed it. She's like, "What?" I've told her the story. And she's like, "I want to meet her." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too."
Okay. It may sound biased because you're the one who's gonna talk about this, but your kids, like your 3 kids, what would they say about you as a father?
Oh, geez. So I think they would probably say, like, if I said, "Give me a word," they were going to give me a word or give a word that described, they would probably say supportive.
Oh.
And when I say that, it's like, I don't mean just financially. I mean just in general, like just kind of having been there, like, when there were games, or when there still are games for my youngest, or my daughter was in dance, or if they needed something as far as just a conversation or that kind of thing. I mean, so kind of present and supportive. And I don't mean that in light of, because I have so much respect for like single moms or single dads that are pulling double duty in some cases. Like, to me, I can't imagine doing it by myself. I really can't. And people are like, "Oh, you'd be great at it." I'm like, maybe, but I don't ever want to find that out, because the bottom line is it's like, it's so much easier. There's a reason why it takes 2 people to make the baby. It's because they're both supposed to be around. And I know circumstances happen where that can't happen. So like I said, I'm not throwing shade at anybody who's in that scenario. but I don't think there are very many that would say, well, it's much easier by myself than it would have been if, now maybe they were in a situation where they couldn't stay, and I get that, and I understand all that. But I think they would probably say supportive. I mean, they know I'm there, and I think they know they can count on me, for whatever that means. I hope anyway. I think that's what they'd say. And if they don't say that, then they get nothing for Christmas next year when it comes around. No,
No, I want to add something to what you said about single parents, because I've even talked about this on some other live streams that Greg and I have done last year, or like when I talk to my friends. If I'm having a hard time and I'm struggling and I'm stressed, and Greg is such a hands-on dad, how much more to single parents? And it's really amazing what you guys do, single parents out there. And
it really is.
Know that you guys are amazing. You
And
guys
I'll tell you what I have the most respect for. I have tons of respect for single parents. And sometimes they're in a situation where it's not even really a good co-parent situation. Like they really feel like they're the only ones that the stability, right? For a child. I have so much respect also though for the parents who figured out at some point that their relationship, this wasn't working and it was turning toxic, but they've managed to co-parent like MVPs. I mean, like the fact that because the bottom line is, and I know this sounds like trivial, but when two people can't get along and there's kids involved, it's always the kids that get the short end of the stick. They're always the ones. And then they start internalizing it and thinking that everything that went wrong is their fault. And that's just not the thing. And so it's like, there are so many different examples there's people on social media, but I just talk about friends and people that I know in my own life where they have managed to figure out a co-parenting model that works. And the one thing that you see very consistently, or at least that I've seen, the one parent is never bashing the other parent.
Yeah.
They may have all kinds of angst between them, exactly. But they will not talk badly about so-and-so's mom or so-and-so's dad. And that, to me, that is the most valuable and the most loving thing that a split up or separated or divorced couple can give to their kids. It's just to realize you might have all sorts of things and you may have receipts. You may have reason to say or think certain things. But the fact that they can, like you said, sometimes you just hold your tongue. The fact that they can do that is so much healthier, in my opinion, for the kids. And it makes all the difference in the world, because I think when there's bad situations and all they see is this, then the child is going to grow up and be one of two things. They're either going to be exactly the opposite because of the damage that it caused them, or they're going to fall into the same pattern and they're going to repeat the cycle. And that's, what nobody wants, hopefully.
You gave that example right there. It pretty much applies to like life in general. If we can all be like that, to be selfless and not just think about ourselves, whether it be that situation that you gave about like two parents who actually are really hating each other. Hate is such a powerful word, but then when there are kids involved and they decided to just like not say anything out of respect and love for their kids, then if we can apply that concept for the people around us, then I think this world will be less negative and toxic.
There really is, as simplistic as it seems, there really is something to, if you don't have something nice to say, just don't say it. Just keep it to yourself. I mean, and it's like you said, you talked about the comments, and it's like, it's so easy to just, like most people, you can just do that. You can just move on. If you don't like what's on the radio, you change the station, or you turn it off, or you change the TV channel. And do that. This is really no different. It's just that. And people will say, well, you're on social media, so you're asking for it. Like you're inviting that kind of stuff.
We want to talk about that too.
Yeah. And it's not about inviting it. It's just about you become a target because you are putting yourself out there. But like I said, if there's going to be some trolls that are going to say X, Y, and Z to me, but there's that one person who says, hey, I was really struggling and you really helped me get through the day, then bring on the trolls. Go ahead. What were you going to say though?
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I've heard that so many times too. Like you're pretty much asking for it because you put yourself out there on the internet. So take it as a man and, just take all the comments, whether it be good or nasty. But that's the thing. It doesn't exactly mean that we are here putting our faces on the internet let alone, okay, like Clean Catch is not just me, it's my husband and our boys. So when you say something about Clean Catch, it pretty much involves my whole family.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it doesn't really make sense why you would exert so much effort and time and energy to think of what would be the nastiest thing that I can say.
Well, and Jenny, if you think about it, most of the time, the comments that get made, forget social media, go back before when we were younger, you didn't have this avenue. This has just become an easy place for people to be keyboard warriors and hide behind the screen and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was always like that, where usually when there's negative comments made or the people that used to say the most hateful things, it's usually because they were dealing with stuff internally, like past hurts or scar tissue of their own. And so it's easier to deflect it because misery loves company. And it's like, well, if I'm not happy, there's no reason for you to be happy either. And saying that, like, just because people are on social media and they're out there, you're putting yourself out there as asking for it, is like saying, well, that woman that got raped, she wore a skirt that was a little too short, so she deserved it. That's garbage. You know, it doesn't equate to, okay, that's okay, she was asking for it. Just like anybody that posts isn't asking, you know, for that. Yes, do you know it's going to come? Sure. If somebody dresses super provocatively and guys show interest, probably you could have guessed that might happen. Maybe that's what the goal was, you know, to a certain extent. That doesn't mean it's okay to take it from 1 to 10 without saying, hi, my name is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's it's there. And it's just one of those things where I don't think we're ever going to like live in a troll free social media environment. You know, they're always going to be there. And because they keep just coming back as new trolls, you know what I mean? Like they'll have an account, they'll get blocked by all the people they want to mess with. They'll start a new one and they'll just show up again. And, you know, it's just, unfortunately, it's a fact and
Something that we have to live with.
it's something that we have to deal with. It's just a matter of, again, like those speed bumps in life, like, how do you deal with it? There's times when I'll see something and I'm like, sometimes I'll make a comment because I'll think the comment it's not like completely vile. It's just sort of like on the edge of inappropriate. And I might respond with something sort of kind or educational or something. I'm not saying educational like I know everything. I just mean, like, for instance, the one that I just posted with the little girl in the swimming lessons thing, the one that's getting it's like gone crazy. Well, if you read the guy's shirt, it's an aquatics trend. He's giving her a swimming lesson. It's not her dad, but there's people that have said, oh, it's her dad. And somebody had made a comment about, oh, her dad or something like that. And I said, I don't think it's her dad. I think it's a swimming instructor. And they're like, well, why is she crying? I'm like, well, when you're teaching kids how to swim, one of the things they have to learn to do is put their face under the water, put their head underwater. And she's completely wet. I think she had just come up and she's crying and he's giving her these affirmations, you know, that are so adorable the way she's saying it, you know. And it's like, so sometimes I'll make a comment back and say, you know what, I think it was this. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that. Thank you. Yeah. Well, so that's
it's
good.
It's all about perception.
Right, but if it's completely just vile and out of control, then I'm just blocked. You know, I'm not trying to hear all that. You know, and then because they want you, if they're really on the negative train, they want you to just continue to engage, and go back and forth, and banter back and forth. And I'm like, to me, that's like the swinging of the pitch in the dirt part.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really crazy because I was gonna do like a follow-up question. It's almost like a brain scan. About the word humble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's really like me myself, like Greg and I talked about this so many times, even with the people that we meet, whether it be like we're doing like a play date at the park,
right?
Like that humble word.
I remember your comment. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't know. Tell me about it, because so, you did talk about it.
Basically, I think it was the one where I'd said that our pastor said something the other day, and so he was going through a cancer battle. He passed away June 5th, a year ago. So it's just been about a year, and that came up as an on this day thing right before. And so he had said he made a comment just as part of his message where he said,
"Have I done anything
he said,
in the past 6 months
if people
that I
tell you how humble they are,
improved my community, neighborhood, churches,
they're probably
etc.?"
Yeah.
And when you think about
2.
that, it's like,
Do I boost worthwhile
I mean,
community
it sounds very
projects
simple, but it's
rather than
also pretty
object,
profound.
criticize,
Because
or complain?
if you've got humility
3.
about you,
Have I ever
about your
taken the
just the
lead in
countenance and the way
bringing
you
about
go about your
some
day and how
worthwhile
you interact with
improvements in
people,
my community?
if you're
4.
really truly
Do
humble,
I
it's
speak
not
well of
anything you
my
should ever have
neighbors
to
and
advertise or
fellow
tell anybody
citizens?
about. And that's kind of what the line of your comment was, if I remember correctly. That it was
Leadership
like,
rule number
it should be
4.
just perceived by other
Take
people
time out to
because that's how you
confer
are.
with
Or if you're
yourself
generous,
and
if
tap
you're
your
sitting there and you're
supreme
generous,
thinking
but you're
power.
like, you're like, you get 100 and you get
We
100,
usually
you're just
picture
making a big
leaders
show of
as
it.
exceptionally busy
Then
people.
are you
and
really
they are.
generous, or are you just
Leadership
wanting people to
requires
go,
being in the
wow,
thick
you're
of
really
things.
generous, what an amazing
But while
person
it's
you are?
usually
And that's not to
overlooked,
say that when
it is
people
noteworthy that leaders
do
spend
well, you brought
considerable
up
time
the
alone,
example with Elizabeth,
alone with
right?
nothing but their
I
own
get
thinking
where
apparatus.
you're going with this
Check the
because
lives of the great
now
religious
that you're
leaders, and you'll find each of them spent considerable time alone. Moses frequently was alone, often for long periods of
talking
time.
about that, like you
So were Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, Mohammed, Gandhi. Every outstanding religious leader in history spent much
made
time in solitude, away from the distractions of life. Political leaders
we were attacked before when we did the pay it forward that
Really?
we're showing here on TikTok.
Mhm.
And I know that there's a lot of TikTokers who also does the same thing. I guess you could call it like flexing, but that's not exactly what it is.
I mean,
There's so many. Like there's this one big creator that I really admire. I followed him, Just Nate.
mhm.
He kind of does what Greg and I are doing, but his is like more dangerous. It's like on a bigger scale, and okay, I don't think we're that brave, but I
Well, and
really
it's, I don't want to interrupt you, but it's not even necessarily that you're that brave. It's that you've also got small kids, or
right.
you've got minor children. So you guys can't just disappear on a weekend and go hang out in a homeless encampment and hope for the best, because you've also got responsibilities. But the things you're doing are amazing. And another thing that I'll tell you that Pastor Craig, who passed, one of the things that he always used to say, because we would every once in a while do through the church some kind of a fundraising effort for like we'd take up an offering for a specific family or for a specific group of people. And would you want to be able to do that for thousands of people? Of course. But he would say, we always want to at least do for one what we wish we could do for all. So like when you guys find those individual people, you have no idea how much you probably impact and change their life. And I follow a bunch of the different people that go around and do some of those things. And it's like, and some of them I have no idea where they get the money from. Like, I don't know if they've got people that just donate and then they turn around and donate. I mean, that's always risky, because then people are going to go, oh, well, they donated 100,000 to you, but you only gave out 50,000 because but the point is that there's so much of that, and they're all feel good stories that bring tears to my eyes. And I'm watching these people that are just so genuinely grateful for what's going on and what's happening. And to me, it's like, I'd rather watch, like I can watch those all day long. I can watch those military homecomings all day long, where these people are surprising their family because they just got back from being deployed or something. Those are amazing. I've been tearing up at all the trend with the Benson Boone, the song, where the teachers are playing. Have you seen those? The teachers are playing the song for their kids, and they're not showing the kids; they're just showing the teacher reacting to it. But these kids just start belting out the song like kindergartners, and it's just really sweet. And it's like, okay, like it gives you that, like, you know what, we're going to be okay kind of feeling. You know what I mean? Like, as bad as things seem sometimes,
There's hope.
There's those glimmers of hope that are like, we're going to be okay.
Well, I want to say this again since we're talking about this, like since we started the live, I did mention that you're one of those people who supported the Pay It Forward when you gave that $100, and that actually helped a lot of people. And talking about Elizabeth, that one homeless girl, she's
Yeah.
not there anymore because I can only imagine that she got kicked out because she stationed herself in that empty lot, and it's now fenced. It's right there in Riverside. But
Right.
I wanna, since you're here, I wanna thank you about that. Like, thank you so much for being.
No, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. It's it's kind of like I actually had somebody say to me once, and like this was in person. This was just somebody that I knew. Like, and it wasn't about your situation, but it was we had like thrown a not like one of those huge tips like you see some of these people that are serial tippers that'll give like a $5,000 tip. It wasn't anything like that, but it was like $100 tip that we gave to a server, and it was just she was killing it. She was busy, and she had a boss who was on her back, and so I had my son go give her that as a tip, and she like went to pieces over it and was just like, and a friend of mine goes, yeah, but I mean, he goes, you're just trying to like store up points for like, when you have to stand before Jesus. I said, no, I said, you're missing the point. I said, you don't get it. But I said, honestly, selfishly, sometimes I feel like I get more out of being kind and generous to people. And so I feel almost guilty how good it'll make you feel sometimes. And I always tell people, I joke and say, I'd be a phenomenal rich person because I'd be like dishing it out left and right to people, trying to help people all over the place. Not because I'm some fantastic person, because it's just selfishly, it's like, it's so much more edifying to walk away from any situation and feel like you helped somebody. I had this is dumb, but in the grocery store one day, there was this older lady who was, she had some on the top shelf, and she wasn't very tall, and she like needed to, and she was just sort of looking around because she was certainly not going to climb up the shelves and get it. It was just on the top, and she was barely 5 feet. And I just said, did you need something from up there? And she just kind of pointed, and she told me what, and I grabbed it and I gave it to her, and she starts crying.
Aww.
And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, I just lost my husband. He used to always get the stuff off the top shelf for me. And I was just like, she goes, so I'm sure he sent you here right now just to do this for me. And I was just like, I just gave her a hug. I mean, I didn't know what to do. And it was like, I'm sitting here tearing up. I don't even know who this lady is. But it was like those kinds of things, like they cost nothing. It costs nothing, and it makes a huge difference. And even though I was there in that moment for her, it affected me probably even more positively than it affected her. That's what I think people don't get. It's like if you're just not sure, should I reach out? Should I step out and do something in faith? Should I be kind to somebody for no particular reason? At the end of the day, selfishly, you're going to get a really good feeling inside from doing it, I think. So.
I saw this video that you posted about like you paid for some family's meal.
Yeah. So one of my friends on this app, Michelle, she lost her son a few months ago to a fentanyl, an accidental fentanyl overdose. So when I say accidental, he was caught up in an addiction that he was trying to get out of, and it was just he'd actually texted whoever his contact was and said whatever it is he was getting, make sure it doesn't have any fentanyl in it. and it did, and he died from it. And so I went up to Oregon. It's been a couple months, 2.5 months ago now, I guess, to the celebration of life. And she's somebody I didn't know before TikTok. Like I met her on the app. But I had seen her a couple of times. My wife and I picked her and her kids up from the airport in Palm Springs and drove partway to meet her parents, who were staying at a place in Arizona, to shorten their drive. And anyway, so we'd kind of gotten to know him. And Susan, the one who does the Little Johnny videos and stuff, had said, we had talked about how her son TJ was extremely giving. He was the one who, he'd have 2 nickels in his pocket, and if somebody needed, he'd give them both. He would just give them both to him. And he was just a really kind-hearted and very generous, always concerned about everybody else more than himself. He was only 22. So Susan had said, we had talked about the fact that, let's do something for TJ. So Susan did this hashtag I did it for TJ thing. And so there had just been a couple of posts, and I had shared with Michelle that story that I did that post about. And I'm always cautious about those, because I don't want it to come across like, oh, you're a great guy. I don't want it to look like that. Exactly. But I had just said that, it was an I did it for TJ thing. Because I'm sitting there and I see this woman who had gone up, she had 4 or 5 kids, they were eating, and they were probably from 10 to 16. They were, all stacked pretty tight together. And they all had appetites. And it was at Chipotle, which at Chipotle, if you feed a family of 6, you might as well, take out a loan.
Taekwondo school there,
yeah.
Right next to that, whatever. So our son at that time, who was only 4 or like 5, and I just gave birth. So there's our eldest at that time and little baby, and we were just eating there. And then there's this older couple, and Greg went back because he left his, as far as I can remember, I think he left his wallet in the car and he went to the car, but then before we could even pay it, they already
that found story. It's the last 2 seconds of the broadcast before they sign off. Like, it's not like, I wish there was a network that just put all the and then got to the garbage later. And if they didn't get to all the garbage, then so what? There's a breakfast place that we go to out here sometimes, and there's a 104-year-old lady. She'll be 105 in October. It's family, but not family, that we've kind of adopted. Sort of her older sister, who passed away like 15 years ago, was sort of like the neighborhood grandma on the street I grew up on. And so 35 years I'd been out of the neighborhood, and I was showing my wife the house I grew up in. And I said, oh, that's where Ada used to live. And I told her the story. And she goes, I said, the house looks the same. And she goes, well, go knock on the door. Maybe she's still there. And I'm like, she won't remember me. Like, I had hair then, and I had a lot of hair. I had like cut your hair shorter. It was thick, and you wouldn't have believed that I'd be like this now. But genetics is a real thing, apparently. But anyway, so I went up and knocked on the door, and she remembered me. She opened the door. She's like, David. And I looked, so we got back in touch and started popping in and seeing her. And we got pictures of her holding our kids when they were infants. And then we connected with her sister as well. And after Ada passed, the sister was by herself. And so we've just sort of always kept in touch with her. Well, she had a fall and broke a hip about 3.5 years ago. And so the person who was sort of taking care of all of her affairs was older and was fighting cancer. And he's like, I'd really like to move her closer to you guys somewhere, because he's like, I'm 76 and my wife's, you know what I mean? He's like, you guys are a lot younger. And I'm like, not a lot, but we're younger. So So anyway, so we see her 4 or 5 times a week. And we go to this one breakfast place because she will eat almost nothing for every meal. But if you take her to breakfast, she will power through that stuff like it's literally her favorite meal of the day. So she'll eat what she eats in a week on Saturday mornings. But there's a group of veterans that goes in there, these same 3 guys that we see almost every week. And so one of the mornings I bought their breakfast just kind of as a thank you for your service kind of thing. Because I really just feel strongly about that. I didn't serve in the military, but I am super appreciative of anybody who has. Law enforcement, people that have, the people that keep us safe and all that, I'm all for. So I just bought their breakfast one day, no big deal. And they came over and were, and I just said, well, thank you all for your service. And they were, they're very nice. And so now when we see each other, it's just hi, like we're old friends. Well, one day we were eating and there was a car out that I could see out the window where there was this older couple and they had the hood up on the car. And I didn't know what was going on. And I'm not a mechanic or anything, but I've been around cars enough that I just went out to, it was kind of hot. And I just said, you guys okay? And my car happened to be parked nose to nose with his. So I said, do you need a jump? Like, is it just a battery issue? And he goes, I don't know. It's a rental. He goes, we flew into Arizona. We're driving on our way to LA, but I called and the only place if it's a problem and they can change it out is at the airport in Palm Springs. So I said, well, I've got jumper cables if you want to try to jump the car. So we hooked it up and jumped it and it worked and they were on their way. And I went back in and kept eating. And then I asked the waitress for the check and she said, oh no, that's already been taken care of. Well, those 3 vets bought our breakfast and he came up and he said, he shook my hand. And he's one of those guys that he's really gruff and like very serious and, and he's a Vietnam veteran. So, I mean, he's well into his 70s and he goes, but he's also, I think, a real softie, but like he's that exterior. You're not allowed to know that, but, like he watches Hallmark movies, but he's not going to tell you that,
exactly.
So he comes up and he goes, and because they told us who, and I said, I stood up and that's the thing with these guys, I will always stand up and shake hands and all that stuff, like just because I think they deserve that respect, for their service. And he said, he says, no, you don't have to get, he goes, you don't have to get up. And I said, oh yeah, I do, and I got up and shook his hand and I said, you didn't have to do that. And he goes, I know I didn't have to do that. He goes, you know why I did it? And I said, I actually don't know, other than maybe you're just paying me back for doing it for you guys a month ago or whatever it was. He goes, no. He goes, we all appreciated that. He goes, but he said, I did it because I saw you get up from your breakfast with your family and you went out and helped somebody that you didn't know and that you'll never see again. And he said, that's why I did it. And he said, and I said, so that means you're telling me I need to look around the parking lot for people that need jumps every week to get breakfast every week? And he started laughing. But the point is it's like, we do these little things and then other people see you do things and then it triggers other things. And it's like the lady at Chipotle, I guarantee you, she bought 2 or 3 people's meals or coffees or something. And it's like, it's just so easy to be kind or to be nice. It takes so much more energy to be a dirtbag, in my opinion. Like it really does. To be negative and to be nasty and mean, it takes so much more out of you. And I'm not the West Coast distributor on kindness or positivity. I mean, the reality is, we struggle with the same things that, the bills come every month. All the same problems happen. You know what I mean? And I check every week and I never win the lottery, but I don't play it either. So that's probably why I don't have any. My chances are really bad.
It's really crazy because you described it as that. But if you want to take that description here on social media, it's actually so much easier to come on here and start a live and you're like cussing people out, like saying all those bad things. And yet we're doing like all just positivity live stream here. And then some people come in and say it's not according to their taste because it's boring.
It's boring. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, but then that's where I would just say, then just move on to the next one. Like, it's not a matter of, that's the thing. It's like, it's kind of like if you look at kids like on elementary school campuses or whatever, and they're so, everybody, and it's not just kids, everybody wants to be accepted, right? Like that's just a natural human thing, is that we want to be accepted. We want to be liked. We want to be thought of well by other people. It doesn't mean we all need to be celebrities and have people go, oh, you're amazing. You know, it's not like that. It's just you want to feel accepted. And I don't think there's ever been anybody that doesn't feel that way, right? You might, people are more, the thing that makes people humble is they don't make that their brand.
About themselves.
The brand isn't, I look at me, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
They just are, they do their thing. And, you know, there are people who have like, you know, empaths and stuff, that they're so emotionally connected that if somebody doesn't like them, it's really, really hard for them to deal with it because they don't have that level of acceptance.
Yeah.
When you really get down to it, it's like, well, who is it that you want to accept you? Like when you really get down to it,
Yeah.
how many people, all right, even in your circle, and you've got a lot of followers on this platform and on others too,
Mm-hmm.
how many people need to really accept you for who you are for you to feel good about yourself?
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of, is it nice when you post a video and there's a lot of views and a lot of likes? Sure, those are all really cool things. But none of that is really truly describing and satisfying. Like, that doesn't make you worth, you know, who you are. That doesn't, it's not your identity. You know, it's something that, like, good, that's something that people engaged with. And maybe when you put a video up there and it gets 10,000 likes or comments or whatever, then if it gets 100,000, well, that just might be more people who had that feel good moment when they saw it, if they got a smile on their face or if they laughed. That's really how I look at it. Like these things that if something goes like crazy and has like millions of views or something like that, it's like, it's not about, I'm not getting anything out of it. Like in my case, I'm not monetized and I don't throw shade at anybody who is. I've had people tell me, you really need to do this and da 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 da. I'm like, and it's not that I'm more afraid that if I did, then all of a sudden all the views would go like this and there'd be nobody watching anything, you know.
I
But
was actually gonna get to that, but remind me of that one. But I want to talk about this right now because it's like I think this goes back to, I even posted about this. It's like all in captions. I didn't really talk about it. It was like a video of like when we did like a birthday message for Greg and our kids were giving him a hug, and then I put captions there. It's all about validation. Like it all really, really comes down to how we are all raised, regardless if it's your actual parents or whoever your guardian was when you were smaller.
right.
If only, that's why like us adults, us guardians are so important to be really there for our kids, because however they turn out to be adults, it really comes down to how you raised them or how you guided them. Because it's almost like if you don't,
The example you set. The
yeah,
example you set.
if you won't make your kids feel like they're safe and they're loved, they're gonna look for that validation somewhere else.
Exactly.
In
Exactly.
different forms. Like and you see these adults in person here on social media platforms like lashing out on people because they're trying to find that validation that they never found, or they're still looking for it. And so they're trying to, we are all, even with us with our Good Vibes niche, we are still finding that like who we really are, but you know, we're doing it in a way that we're not hurting people.
Right. And nobody's ever finished. Like you're never done evolving as a person. Like it's never just over. Like you're never just like, okay, this is just who I am and you're done. Like that's where I think the danger lies. If somebody just says, well, you know, I got fired from 3 jobs in a row, so I guess I'm just a loser. And all of a sudden they sink into that and they start to wear that as their identity. And the reality is maybe you just weren't in the right jobs. You know, there are people that go to school and get a degree because somebody pushes them down a certain path and says, this is what you should do. And maybe that's not at all what they want to do. Maybe they just haven't figured out what it is they want to do. And it's like, if we stop like moving forward and stop trying to grow as people, I don't care how old you are, there's always room for growth. And like the example that you set or that we set as parents, and that could be single or as a married couple, but the example that you set is really setting them up for what their expectations are in life. Like when my daughter was, I I think 5, maybe. I don't know. Maybe she was 6. Our son was like 3. We didn't have the older one at that point. We were in a restaurant, just like a Rubio's kind of place. We'd go order and pick it up and leave kind of deal. And a lady that my wife knew, okay, it was a former student of my wife's who had just graduated, and her mom was in there. And I got the impression, well, my wife told me later that the mom and the dad had a really bad divorce, breakup, whatever, right? Recent, like within the last year or two. The girl was in school, in the high school when this all happened. And so as a result, it was like hard on her. And the mom grabbed my hand, and with more like passion than I could tell you, she just looked me square in the eye and she said, "The greatest gift that you can give your children," and I said, "Yeah," and she said, "is to love their mother." And she says, "Whether you're together or not, love their mother, because that will form their expectations for their relationships down the line." And we all heard that before, like as a father and as a dad, as a husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I treat my wife in a respectful way, even though we might not always agree, but I treat her in a respectful way, then that sends a message to my daughter that this is how you're supposed to be treated. And it sends a message to my sons, this is how you treat somebody. It doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means that and you know how it is in families. Like, how old are your kids?
15, 11, 9, and 7.
Okay. So there's definitely been some arguing that happens in the house, right? Sibling arguing, of course. Okay. Now, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if anybody outside the family messes with any of them, that's a whole different story.
Yes. There's this
100%.
thing, like, siblings can bully each other, but you mess with my sibling, I'm gonna, you know what, you.
My son is 2.5, 2 3/4 years younger than my daughter, and she's got an edge to her when she's, like, she'll let you know how she thinks about something, and he's very like go with the flow, but he would just like get so frustrated sometimes because she'd be just, we'd joke, and I told my wife, because we'd get all these comments, "Oh, she's so amazing," and she's an amazing person, but she'd come home and her head would spin around and she'd be doing all this stuff, and we're talking about, she's the sweetest. We're like, are you talking about the same person? And in my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad that when she's out in the world, she's acting how she should act, and that she's safe enough that when she comes home, if she's got to let the anxiety out a little bit, it's here in a safe place, as opposed to letting it out on everybody out in the public that doesn't have anything to do with it, right? Yeah. But my son would get frustrated because of the way she'd act sometimes. And there was a period of time where he was like, I don't think he ever said he hated her, because we wouldn't have allowed that. We would have snapped back on that. But he was like just not happy with her and the way that they were interacting. But one time, there was somebody at she was at a dance performance, and he was like a 8th grader, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was her junior year, but her senior year, because she graduated in 3 years. And somebody made some comment about her, and he was not as big as this kid. And he said, "Bro," he goes, "that's my sister." And the guy turned and he kind of looked down like, "Oh, well, you're kind of little to be saying
like
that."
You're smaller than me, or I'm bigger than you.
And he goes, "And I will end you." Just very calm. He just said it like with all this confidence. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, he's not been in a fight in his life. Like, what's he talking about? "I'll end you," And the kid just kind of went, "Chill, bro. It's on my bad. No disrespect." And he walked away. And I looked at Nick and I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? Like, you got all defensive, And he's just like, I said, "Where did that come from?" And he goes, he goes, I bluffed. I figured it would work. But when he was a kindergartner, a bigger kid took a ball away from a little girl that was playing with it. And he was riding his little trike around, and he saw this happen. And this kid was twice his size. And he went up and got off the bike, and he went over and he took the ball from the big kid and he went and handed it to the little girl. And he said, "She was playing with that."
Oh, wow.
He goes, "We don't just take things." And the teacher told us when we went to pick him up, and we're like, "What did the big kid do?" And she goes, "He didn't know what to do, because nobody had ever put him in his place. No one had ever stood up to him. Yeah. He just walked away and he went and did something else." And I said, what did Nick do? She goes, he just jumped on his trike and just kept like, just all in a day's work, and I'm like,
Nothing happened.
and I told Carrie Lynn, I'm like, hey, we're raising a good human. That's all that matters. It's like, it's good.
I'm really glad you brought up the whole situation about the relationship. Like I said earlier, like especially for guys, we women, we can kind of like judge a guy based off of like how this guy treats his mom.
Right.
And same as what you were saying, like when you're showing your daughter how you're treating your wife, then she has that thing in her persona, like, oh, so this is
How
what
it's supposed to be.
yeah, exactly. But I just saw that we've been here for 90 minutes. I want to talk about a little bit about this side gig that you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can you talk about that? Like, what led you to do that?
So my dad, for years, refereed college basketball. And then later he went on and he assigned college basketball for a long time, meaning had all these officials that worked games for him. And for different leagues, he would send the officials out to different locations to officiate or referee the games. And he passed away in 2012. So back then, I was going to take over a couple of the leagues that he was assigning. And I kind of had to make the decision, was I going to stay on the floor as a referee and try to assign also? Or was I going to come off the floor and just focus on the assigning part? And I kind of made the decision, because of the age that the kids were, our kids, that it would be better. I felt like I could do both of them adequately, but neither one of them exceptionally well. Like because I would just be pulled in different directions, and have to like manage it. And because the
spread thin.
I'm sorry?
You will be spread thin.
Yeah, I would be spread too thin to do either of them really well. And I'm not saying I do what I do really well, but the point is I'm better at it than I would have been if I was still trying to referee on the court. Because as an example, my dad the last year he was sick. And so he got all the assignments out. And then like he sent an email out to everybody and said, okay, Dave's your contact now. And so the rest of that season, which was in November all the way through the end of March, basically, I was refereeing games, but I was also filling all the holes. And if somebody a school called and said, hey, our game's at 6 instead of 7, I had to reach out and communicate with all the officials. And so I was kind of doing both jobs that one year. And it was pretty hectic, because I would be in a locker room getting ready to go out on the floor and referee a game, all the while looking at my phone to see, did this official who was stuck in traffic make it to his site, or her site, or whatever it is. Because I assign both men's and women's officials, depending on which league it is. So it's kind of a hobby that I get paid a little bit for. It's certainly not enough to pay the bills, because it would be I would love to just do that, but it's not enough to pay the bills. But it's it's something that I can do. The timing of it makes it so that, like, coming off the court and no longer refereeing, but now just being kind of a supervisor for the officials. Mm-hmm. When my kids were growing up and dance recitals and football games and track, whatever, like anything they had, soccer games, it made me have the ability to adjust my schedule and such so that I could be at all those things and still go and observe games and do what I needed to do. And now with the streaming capabilities that everybody has, like I can sit, sometimes funny, it's like mission control. I can sit in the office here at the house, and I've got 2 games up on a split screen on this computer monitor. I've got another monitor, so I look like a stockbroker. I can have a tablet or an iPad. I can be watching 6 games at one time. And I'm not literally watching 6 at one time, but I can look at pieces of them. And if I see something weird going on, so it's kind of like I can watch a lot more by not being there in person. But the reality is I still need to go out and FaceTime with the coaches and the athletic directors and all that. So it's just something that, it's kind of like like I said, it's a hobby that you can make a little bit of money doing. So that's kind of a win-win.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, I can only assume that, advocacy is like it could be like in any forms. Like, what would you say your advocacy in life is?
I think that,
I mean, you did mention, I mean, it's all over your content. I mean, you helped us.
well,
You pitched in with our pay forward.
yeah,
Always very supportive when it comes
I
to.
think this actually really kind of goes across all sections, I think, of my life in a way. Like with the refereeing thing, it's like my most favorite thing to do is to find somebody when they're just getting to that point where they can start working college basketball, like to move up from high school to college. And I can say, okay, I'm going to give them an opportunity to start. And then they can move up to different levels that I assign. And then beyond me, they can work Division I and move up. There's people that are working Division I now that I gave their first college game to 10 years ago, 12 years ago. There's people in the NBA now that I gave their first college game to that are refereeing NBA games that are friends of mine and stuff. So it's like being able to see people like advance and kind of help advance and sort of like help them be successful. And, you know, and it's no different with like this stuff is that the positivity posts and the things like that, like some of them are just feel good posts and that's all it is. But at the same time, it's like being able to build up and support people. And it doesn't always, in fact, most of the time it's not financially, it's just supporting them in some other way. It's just knowing that, you know, that they can kind of count on you or rely on you. And it's like the same thing with the kids. It's like you want them, you want them to move and kind of create their own path. And yes, you want them to know that you're there supporting them, but it's more like there's a point where you get past guiding and then you just kind of start cheering for them. You know what I mean? Like you see that, like, okay, you know what? They're doing everything. And you know, if you've got a 15-year-old, there's points where you think you still have to do every little thing. And then they do something and you're like, huh. And you're like,
I wouldn't exactly do it that way, but I'm going to let him figure it out kind of thing.
Right. Well, but that happens. And like with our son, the one who probably won't see this because I don't think he follows me and he's on his way to Tokyo right now. He heard a message in church one day where talking about homeless people and how like, you know what, anybody could be homeless. Like it could happen to any one of us. And he went out and had my daughter, they went out to go grab they were going to go to like, Cold Stone or something to get ice cream, and then she wanted a crumble cookie. I don't know do you guys have crumble cookie out there? Those things they're like it's like a whole meal, you know, one of those things. They're like they weigh a ton. They saw a homeless guy that was kind of over on the parking lot on the corner, and my son's like, "Hey, Emma, drive over there." She's like, "Why?" And he goes, I want to give him a little something." Well, he had heard this message, and then he kind of just was applying it. He's seen it in real life. And she goes, "What do you want to give me?" He goes, "I just want to give him whatever's in my pocket." She's like, "What's in your pocket?" He's like, $47. Yeah. $47 is a lot to me, but to a 16-year-old, it's a small fortune, you know, like when that's burning a hole in your pocket. And then he goes over there and he says, "Here, you give it to him because, you know, I don't know what to say." Well, that's partially it. But the other part of it is that part of the message was that we don't give and we don't do things. Give from your heart. Yeah. Not for the applause. Like just, so when I was talking, my wife told me about it. He didn't say anything to us about it. He still doesn't know we know, except for maybe now he will, but, but he doesn't know we know.
That's out of the bag.
Right. I know. Oh, well. But he didn't say a word to us. Our daughter told my wife, she told me, and I'm like, and he had a hard time with the fact that our pastor who had passed away, he was pretty close with, he hadn't really connected to the guy that's there now. But the guy that's there now is the one who gave that message. So I told my wife, I said, two things happened there. One, he heard that from the new pastor and he went out and he applied it, which I'm just proud of, period. But two, he flew completely under the radar and didn't want any credit for it. And I said, he might do millions of things in his life that I'll be proud of, but I'm not sure that I'll be more proud of anything than that. Just the fact that he just did that, he reached out and he didn't even leak a word of it. Like it was just like, nope, you know, he didn't want the credit. He didn't want anything. He'd probably be mad at my daughter that she snitched him off. But, you know, so I mean, if we can create those moments, and I'm not saying that that's anything that we did, but something about his experience and what he heard and put him in a frame of mind where he thought, this is something that I want to do. You know, like that would be like, to me, elevating people and helping people find their their jam, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like whatever's going to help somebody be the best person that they can be. Like I don't care if somebody's successful or they're millionaires or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. To me, success isn't about like how much you make or what kind of car you drive. It's about, it's who have you touched, whose life have you somehow enriched without standing there and going, look what I did. It's just, the stuff that you can do just in the shadows, that's kind of, well, it sounds creepy when you say shadows, but you know what I mean.
Now that you're talking about it, I got reminded of, I'm sure you saw that post that I posted, when was this, like a few days ago. We went to the beach, right? So we were going to go out to eat, but it was like 8 o'clock already by the time the kids got cleaned up, sand off and everything.
Sure, yeah.
We couldn't eat out. So we were looking for Little Caesars. I don't know why the kids like Little Caesars better than Domino's. I like Domino's better, but whatever. So we were there, and the pizza was kind of like an old pizza that got reheated.
Right.
So they didn't really like it. Our second boy didn't mind. So the other boys didn't feel like eating the rest. And so one of the kids said, because I said, I think we should get rid of it because it's kind of like a stale pizza.
Right. Let's not take any chances.
and then our third boy, he said that we should go look for homeless people to give it to. So they were like having this almost like an argument. Like, no, that would be like an insult. Doesn't mean that they're homeless, that they can eat stale pizza.
Stale food, right? Yeah. It's like, I like the way you're thinking, but but there's cheese on here and it could be a milk product that's turned bad, or something like that. Like, that's funny.
I thought it was really cute, but
yeah,
I'm sure you as a dad, you're really proud of the family that you raised, you and your wife, and I'm sure your kids also share the same opinion, and you should be really proud of yourself.
Well, I don't know if. Thank you for saying that. I mean, I think the one thing that I think has maybe come through in just the way that we've kind of raised them is that we've always tried to kind of model for them that, like, every parent like wants their kids to have an easier time of it than they did, right? Like that's kind of everybody's goal is like, well, I don't want you to have to stress about what I stress about. And yet, if you think about that, if we take away all the stresses and all the challenges, well, then they're not ready for anything, right? And so it's a fine line between what do you do that helps them develop into the most well-rounded adult versus not having them struggle unnecessarily for things. So I think what you have to do is you have to find ways to make sure that they understand that just because our situation might be X, there are a lot of people that are out there living with Y and Z, and it could be a lot worse. And I think that there have been conversations or comments made when we'll be someplace, not just like the situation I said with the homeless guy that my son wanted to help, but just even with their friend groups, with their friends, the difference in like a certain home dynamic that one of their friends might have that's different from ours, where it doesn't mean that they're in an abusive situation or a bad situation. It just maybe isn't as comfortable. And I don't mean financially, I mean just safe. You know what I mean? Like a safe spot where, as maybe ours is. And so that to me is like, that's like hashtag winning in the parenting world. Like if you can get them to understand that we have all this, and I don't mean, things.
Rich.
We've got this like love, and we've got this like, this security within the family, but not everybody does. So don't take it for granted. And like you get that because you make it a priority and you work at it. I mean, there's times when it would have been more convenient not to eat together at home. There's times when it doesn't happen, with sports, and there's always things that happen in life. But when we can, we like to try to eat together so that there's some kind of a, you have those conversations. Yeah. And, put the phone away and all this sort of stuff, and let's just talk. And, but you have to intentionally do that. And it's so easy. And I'm guilty of it. We've gone out to places before where, you go to dinner and there's 4 or 5 people at dinner and they're all a family and everybody's got a phone out. And we've done it. We've all done it. Like everybody's done it. You have to kind of like intentionally, and I have a ton of respect because there's certain like moms or families where it's like, all right, phone's in the basket or something, and you have to put them all somewhere and nobody can be on it for like, even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes, it makes a difference. So, I mean, I just think that it's a matter of being intentional and trying to create an environment where it's not a matter of
It's
it can all
not being
work.
so rigid, like particularly like you have to do this. It's more like adapting to the situation to where you can find like a common ground kind of thing.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be like, well, you can't have your phone for 1 hour, even though it only takes 15 minutes to eat dinner. Like, it's just a matter of, let's just put this down and talk for a second, or how was your day, or what happened, or this and that. And like I said, there's times when we've got to check ourselves, you know. But I mean, you'll go to a restaurant. I bet you can't go to a restaurant these days and not look and find a table where everybody's on a device at once. It happens all the time. And I'm not saying anything. I know don't let the 4-year-old have the iPad
Yeah.
at dinner. Okay, now I've seen that. But I've also seen where there's a mom and maybe a dad too. And dad, you can tell, dad's still in his work clothes. He's worked, he's tired, he's exhausted. Mom's been through it because she's been handling the kids. And they're going to go out and eat. And they can either make sure that kid doesn't have that tablet or whatever, the game that they're playing. And then they'll have like an absolute meltdown.
Yeah.
Or they can go, okay, you can do that until the food comes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's just smart. That's knowing. I'm seriously, it's just being smart. It's like, you have to realize, it's like in the old days, the teachers used to say, well, you can't use a calculator on a math test because you're not always going to have a calculator with you. Oh, really? Well, there's one on my watch and there's one in my phone and they're everywhere. There are calculators everywhere.
There's Chat GPT.
That's what I'm saying. You can sit there, the point is that you can ask your phone anything. And I was trying to figure out what time, because they land in Tokyo and like at like 4:00 in the afternoon. So I'm like, well, so what time will it be in LA? So I get West Coast time when it's 4 p.m. in Tokyo and it's like midnight. Right. And I'm like, okay, that's easy. So like now I can figure out the difference and I kind of have an idea, but I didn't have to like type all that in. I just asked my phone and it told me, and I'm like, and I'm not saying that we should trust all that, because some of that AI stuff, we could do a whole nother show on that. Some of it's a little scary to me.
That's like really broad.
It's really broad, and there's some things about it that are absolutely amazing, and then there's some things that are completely terrifying. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, you have to be intentional about at least prioritizing and kind of getting, and my son's interesting because he's kind of an old soul a little bit. He made a comment one day on the way to school. I was dropping him off and he said, sometimes I wish that I was actually alive like in the 1800s. I'm like,
I can kind of agree with that, but I love movies, the 300, those kind of movies.
Right.
Like so brutal. Apart from that, I don't want to live.
Some of it. But I think he's sitting there going like he's the type that he's like, I think he just is looking like, things were simpler then. Like you didn't have all the things you had, but things were simpler then. You got up, you worked your land. You know what I mean? Like he's looking at it in that way. Like that's the kind of thing that and so I can see that he's a little bit of an old soul like that. Where like my daughter's like, she wants all the gadgets and she wants all the technology and all that. And it's just, they're just wired different. You have multiple kids. It's like they all come with a different wiring schematic, and different things make them tick. So anyway.
Well, the good thing about our kids is that like they can argue and bicker and everything, but they're never physical. Like we've always taught them to use your words.
Yeah. And same thing. Yeah. Same thing with ours. Like you can say stuff and we all know that sometimes the things we say are even more hurtful than a punch in the arm kind of thing. Yeah. But you can't just all of a sudden default towards, violence, because you do that, it's going to get you in trouble down the road. It's either going to get your butt kicked or it's going to get you arrested. It's like, or both. So it's like, it's just, it's a lot easier to talk through things. And that's why I said, like, when my son got so aggressive with that one kid, like, where's that coming from? You're not like a prize fighter. Like, what are you talking about? But anyway.
Okay, let's go back to your content, like the good vibes niche, love and positivity, kindness. There's a lot of I'm seeing a lot more people, new TikTokers, like specifically here on TikTok. And obviously we're all like in this generation. What does it Greg calls it attention something. Like we're all about like trying to get attention from
Right.
from the world.
Right.
So your contents are obviously all about positivity and all that. So
That's
if
right.
if there's like newcomers here on TikTok, what would you give them as an advice? Because me personally, I've seen TikTokers who started here on TikTok, like all like positive and everything. And then they figured, hey, it's not catching any attention. So I'm going to sway and go to this direction to trigger people. And now I'm getting the attention.
Yeah. I think that I think it kind of depends on what your goal is or what your end game is. Like if you're trying to, be a social media influencer, where you're trying to have everything in your life paid for and you're trying to have sponsorship deals and you're trying to then you got to have some kind of a gimmick or a hook, I guess, that makes people watch. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of times where I know if I gave some like F word laden diatribe about me being upset about something, I might get millions of views on that because it's more like entertaining or something like that, right?
Like, it's less boring.
What's that?
It's
Instead of-
less boring.
Yeah, it's less boring. And I mean, the reality is that
It's
like
great
for
talking about
me, it really depends on what the goal is. Like if the goal is that, because you'll see people in their little byline and it'll say, just here for fun and positivity, or I'm just here for jokes and this, or mom humor or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And that stuff's very funny and it's very relatable, right? Like you guys do couples and marriage humor stuff and all that. And it's very relatable. People can relate to it. And sometimes when you're within any kind of a niche of any kind, like a lot of times it's a little more extreme than what you might deal with on a regular daily basis, but it brings a point to it where it's entertaining and yet it's so accurate. Like, why is it so accurate? Like so you can tell, oh my gosh, same, or you are me, or we're married to the same guy, or whatever it is, right? You get a lot of those kinds of comments. And that's to me like a huge compliment. Like if you're putting out, for you guys, those kinds of comments would be like, okay, we're landing where we want to land. We're connecting with the right people. There's a lot of people, and it's interesting because for a while I felt like I was the welcoming committee. Like when I got a big, like a video that got a lot of views, and people would start following my account, I'd go in and look at those people and they were 300 followers. They were newer accounts. So I felt like they were just rolling me out like, oh, he's this safe, bald old guy. He's harmless. We'll send him out. We'll send him out to the newbies and get them hooked, and then we'll show them the real stuff. But I mean, it's like, if you're new and you're just trying to start out, to me, it's like, be true to whoever you are. Because if this becomes, like, I know some people that are like trying to deal with the whole, like the TikTok shop thing, and they're trying to sell products and they're doing that. No shade, if whatever, if they want to do that, that's great. But it's like it's like Amway back in the day. Like if you do this right now and you get into this multi-level marketing thing, you'll be rich in 24 hours. And it doesn't work like that.
But wait,
yeah. But wait, there's more. And if you get 27,000 other people to do, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's this hook that gets you in. And it's like, the one thing I've learned in my almost 58 years of walking around the planet, bumping into things and not knowing what I'm doing, is that nothing's free. Like there are things you might get fortunate and get lucky on something, but you probably put the work in somewhere for that opportunity to present itself. It's very rare that you're just walking and lightning strikes and it's like, oh, you know what? You can sell 10,000 of these laser hair removal things on TikTok and all of a sudden you can buy a house in Miami Beach. It doesn't usually work like that. So I would say to people, like, set your expectations at a point where you need to have fun doing it before you find out if this is something you want to really do like over and over again for real. Because as soon as something that's fun, or in my case, kind of fun and therapeutic, as soon as it becomes a job, it might lose its luster. And I've seen so many people, and I bet you have too, people that I had really kind of connected with, and some of which I'm still very good friends with, that they're not even active on the app anymore. But we had communicated offline, and we're still close and communicating, but they're not on the social media circuit anymore because they did it during COVID and it was a thing. But now it's like, it became too much. They were too worried about how many likes or, how many views.
Yeah.
And it got to be such a,
it gets daunting.
Yeah. And it turned into a negative. And it's like this is supposed to be fun. And if it's something fun that can generate some income for the people that are doing it that way, God bless them. That's great. It's like me with the basketball thing. Like, it's fun. I enjoy it. And I get paid a little bit to do it. I'm not going to retire on that. But the point is it's nice. It's supplemental. Well, a lot of people are very few people do this and it's all they do. And they don't have any other source of income. If people can get to that point, that's amazing. But most people, it's a supplemental to start. And then it has to grow into something. So you just have to, I think, kind of manage the expectations and then decide what your thing is going to be. Have you seen this guy? I think his screen name is Dad Venture, I think. I think he's in either Australia or New Zealand. And he's just real good looking guy. And he's like always, and all he does is he walks out and I don't even know if he has a voice because all it is words on the screen. But it's hilarious.
Is he always like holding like a coffee mug?
Yes, he's always got a cup or a coffee mug and he takes a drink and then he just kind of smiles. The guy's hilarious, and his follower count is going up. He's 275. I don't know. He's on his way and he's funny. I don't know where he gets his stuff from. I don't know if it's all just his own thoughts, but it's like he's funny, and he just walks out and he's got a cup and he'll just sit there and he'll take a sip and then he'll just go and he'll walk away. And I'm like, this guy's striking gold with what he's doing because he's figured it out, right? I'm sure he's got a whole bunch of the ladies are like, oh, I'm going to, I'll follow him. He's a good looking guy, but he's funny. I follow him too because I think he's hilarious. He'll take a sippy cup sometimes or a juice box or something and he'll take a drink of that. Like he's just drinking it like it's a beer. He's like got a juice box or a little pink mug with a character on it. And he does these little different prop things and it's genius and it works, and it works for him. It's like, you just have to kind of find that thing. But I think sometimes you stumble onto that thing when you weren't expecting it because you're having fun with it and organically it takes you in a direction where you see, okay, this makes sense, and I just think you can't take it too seriously.
Thank you for answering that because the reason why I asked you is because you stayed true to your positivity. Well, I guess you can't call it a niche, pretty much. Like even with the Queen Catch, it's like all over the place, but still there's like a common ground of like we stay in our lane and we do our best to make people laugh, smile at least. But
and it is intentional because it's like you guys could do audio, you could do lip sync stuff to stuff that's raunchier and might get you more views on certain things. And, and like you do some of the stuff you do, it's got an edge to it and it's perfect because the reality is I don't care how pure people will come across. Everybody has that sense of humor. You know what I mean?
We talked about it so many times. Like there would be some people who would come into our live stream and say, well, like you guys never fought. I'm like, no, like we've talked about this so many times. Like we're not here to project perfection. Like we have a perfect family, perfect relationship, perfect marriage. There's nothing like that. Like we argue and, somebody sleeps on the couch sometimes and that's okay because we're not trying to portray perfection here. The thing that we're trying to do is just make people smile at least.
Here's what comes across though in your videos. Okay, I'm gonna flip the script now. It's gonna be my show for a minute. Here's what comes across in your videos. The ones you do that have a little edge to them and all that stuff. You guys, you can totally tell how solid your relationship is because of the fact that you guys will have this banter and this playfulness that goes back and forth, and it comes across in what you post. And as much as it looks like Greg's in trouble again, right? You guys are having a ball doing it. It's obvious that you guys are having so much fun doing it. And that's what resonates with people. It's not a matter of the same exact audio could be done by two different people and it's not going to land the same way. Just like, like I've had friends on the app tell me like the same duet could be done by different people and it may not land the same because what you add to it or what you say that I think I'm being a fraud for, what you say is actually really authentic and it resonates. The stuff that you guys do, it comes across. You can tell, number one, that you guys really love each other. You've got a great, family. You've got a great relationship, but you're having so much fun with it that nobody is sitting there thinking like, gosh, that was a true story. Like that, like Greg really, and even though there might be things that have happened that you could say, well, that was similar to that one time, the fact that you can get past whatever that reality was to the point where you can because what your stuff does is it makes people realize it emphasizes that if you think you're perfect, no, you're not.
Yeah.
If you think you've got a perfect, no, you don't. You don't have a perfect relationship. Nobody does. And if you think you are, it's like when you go to the family get together and you're like, how every family has that one annoying person and you're like, I don't know who it is in our family. It's probably you. You know what I mean? Like, because if you don't know who it is, it's you. So you guys have a way of communicating and it comes across so positive, and even when it's like got a negative edge to the video where it's like another disaster or Greg screwed up again. I mean, that's kind of a niche. If you have a niche, it's Greg keeps screwing up, right? But at the same time, it's like, but not always. Sometimes he gets his, and he wins here and there. It's a good dynamic. It's obvious that you guys love each other. It's obvious that you're having fun. And because you're having fun, that's why it attracts people and why people enjoy watching the content. That's why they hit the plus button, because they're like, I like these people because they make me smile, they make me laugh, or they are me, I relate to them, and so anyway, I mean, you can have the show back now, but keep doing what you're doing.
No. I want to say thank you because, like we've said this so many times, like when we get comments like, like that one content that we made something about this guy who supposedly we helped him through his chemo therapy, like he has cancer and he's cancer free now, that kind of stuff. Like we live for that comment, and I'm sure you do too. And that's exactly why we are here. We're doing what we do, like making fun of ourselves.
And you said like, we live for that stuff, and it's a matter of we do, but not because we want to say, oh wow, you're welcome. Yeah. It's because you want to see people. It makes you feel so good inside when you see people winning. You know what I mean? Like when you see people winning, when you see them overcoming whatever obstacle it might be, when you see somebody like beating cancer, or you see somebody, and sometimes those things don't end the way you want them to, but you can take so much from the courage and the bravery or whatever it is that people show. And it's just like I get so caught up because it drives me nuts. Like I love when I see a video that, like, I don't know if you saw the one, it was about, well, recently there was the Gen X one with the girl with the pink hair who like said, can we just all agree Gen X is the worst generation? And then all these people started jumping in. And a lot of millennials, and they're like, shh, they're like, don't, we don't mess with them. Don't wake them up. Just leave them alone. And it created a whole bunch of just hilarious content and posts. And then there's others. There was one where there was, somebody, and it was like, it wasn't, when I say it was racial, it wasn't racial. It was like white, black, but they had made a comment about like, as a member of the Black Federation, we will, and it was turning into like, they started negotiating, like, the white person wanted to be invited to 3 cookouts, and they wanted to say, no, but you have to keep Kanye, and you have to, it was all this stuff, and it was all just fun. Like
action.
It was all just fun. And it was like nobody was offended. It was just people laughing and having a good time. I posted something, it's been a while ago, and I think I reposted it about, we went to lunch after church one day, and there was this table of it was all African-American people, all black people, all older. And they were like having a ball. And I had to go back. The restroom was back by where their table was. And I said, I always think we have a good time here, but nobody is having as much fun as you guys. And I said, so I want to know how I get invited to this cookout. And they're like, pull up a chair. We saved you a seat. And it was like, it was so like just everybody was laughing. There was no tension. It was like when we don't look at all that we're being told is wrong with everything,
Yeah.
there's a lot more good that's there if we just relax and stop sweating the small stuff. Just actually look at people for who they are. And it doesn't have anything to do with, the color of their skin or the car they drive or who they voted for. None of that matters. It's like, just look at that person and meet them where they are, whatever that is. And it might be nothing more than just a smile because they've had a day and you can tell because they're wearing it on their face. Or like I said in one of the videos, that mom that's wrangling the kids and you can tell she's been going through it, just walking by and saying, because they look at you like they're so sorry that their kids are acting up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, you're doing great. Just keep doing you. And that one little thing can sometimes just go and just give someone a moment to breathe. It's like, there's so much more that we have in common and that I think people see eye to eye on than there is that we don't have in common. Yet the focus is always on the negative stuff instead of the positive stuff. And that's my whole thing is skip the negative stuff and just focus on the positive stuff. And you're going to find that you're going to have different interactions with people that you might not have ever interacted with. You just have to kind of open up your heart and your mind to it and see what happens.
I mean, it's human nature that we can never please everybody, but it's like you wouldn't know exactly if you're going to click with that person if you're not going to give it a chance.
Right.
Especially.
And click, it doesn't mean you have to have a year-long relationship with them. It might be as simple as, you've got one item in your cart and I've got 20 in the line that says no more than 15. And you say, go ahead and go.
Exactly.
And you might be the first person that was nice to them today. And that's sad, but it might be true.
And they will remember that for the rest of their lives, and they're gonna treasure that feeling that they want to spread it out there.
And it might cause somebody, exactly. It might cause, that's the key right there. It might cause somebody to, like you guys with your pay it forward thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you are up against it and everybody doesn't see you or acknowledge you or just is going about their business, well, you just keep spinning in the negative. You're circling the drain because it's not good. Somebody does something that's just so simple that might be a smile, it might be a wave, it might be a head nod, like just an acknowledgement, like I see you. Yeah. And that might change their whole perspective and how they then interact with the next person that they interact with. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm not saying like we're out here saving the world. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But okay, I can't save everybody. Yeah. But like I was telling you that our pastor used to say, we'd like to do for one what we could do for everybody. Well, you can be nice to that person that's in front of you right now. You can do something. You don't have to buy their dinner. You don't have to buy you might not have the money to do that. It doesn't mean that you can't be kind. You can't say you want to go ahead or everybody has the ability to be kind. It doesn't have to be monetized. It could just be being nice. And if you do that, it's amazing how much the countenance of a person who feels like they've been getting beat up by life changes when somebody just realizes that I see you. I see you and you have value. And it's like, it's free. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything.
I really like that content that you posted about what was it that you said, that we all have an opportunity to do something out of kindness to everybody.
Yeah, I think, I said that. I said, when you have an opportunity, and I think I said, let's face it, we all have an opportunity. There's never an excuse, to be an idiot. You don't have to be an idiot to anybody. Not that we haven't all been idiots. I've been an idiot plenty of times. But it's a choice. It's either letting the circumstances that are surrounding you in that moment dictate how you respond. We can't control everything. I sound like a fortune cookie, but we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we react to what happens to us. Yeah. So if something happens and it's hard to do, it's harder to do. If somebody's a jerk to me, I've got pretty thick skin. You know what I mean? I'm not that sensitive. You're not going to I always tell my friends, I'm kind of unoffendable. They'll say something and think, oh my gosh, that's we can't say that these days. And I'm like, look, you cannot offend me. I'm not like that. Mm-hmm. But if they say something or do something that hurts somebody I love or care about, it's really hard to sometimes respond in the way my page says you should respond versus how I want to respond in that moment, because you just hurt somebody that means a lot to me. And So that's the challenge, and that's what I mean. Like when you can watch the videos, you can watch all this stuff, and I really mean all of it. It doesn't mean I don't struggle with having. Sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm looking into the screen and saying we all have an opportunity to do the right thing. It's like it's a mirror, because you know how we can see ourselves in the video. I'm talking to myself as much as I am anybody else. The reality is I'm talking myself off the ledge more than anybody else, probably.
You know that the video reply that you did for the one who got the golden buzzer.
Yeah.
What was his
Richard Goodall.
Richard Goodall.
Yeah.
Like I searched him because of that video reply that you posted. I searched him here on TikTok, and I also searched his AGT video on YouTube that right now, it was like posted 2 weeks ago, and it has 13 million views. And I was like so emotional, because it's like, remember I sent you a message. I said, if only we could all bottle this good feeling and spread it to the world, then we can be like, we can make so much more effort to be nicer to each other. Because, and I wish that Clean Cash, and I'm sure you do too in your own way, we will get to that point where we would be so good at not exactly making so much effort that it becomes like work for us, because we do love what we're doing.
Sure.
Especially we get good comments from our followers and friends. But it's like, I wish we could get to that point in time where we are so good at, posting videos that, it will really reach out so much more people to
just to cast a wider net, so that
like that good feeling. Like there's
the
special, like when you feel that feeling.
Yeah, the AGT video, I think the one that AGT posted themselves, I think he put it up on, he like reposted it, and I think it's got like over 70 million views now or something. And it was crazy. Like, and I don't know if you saw him, you probably didn't, but did you see the one when he sang, when he was the janitor at the school? There's a video.
The one that I saw was when he was like briefly talking about his story, that he's a janitor, and
okay, so
he was asked like, "What's the big dream?" And he just
you might be able to find it if you put in like the search, like singing janitor or something like that. But he was a janitor at a middle school, and the first time I saw him was a couple of years ago. He didn't post it. A teacher at the school posted this video of him singing "Don't Stop Believing" on stage at this middle school, and the kids were just going nuts. And it was like, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this guy has got like this great voice. And he's the closest thing to Steve Perry. Like, it's the closest thing to the original I've ever heard. Like, his voice is so similar. And
I'll have to disagree with that, because I'm Filipino.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's Arnel Pineda, The Journey.
Oh, yeah. That's right. But I mean, my point is like, he just, and you see him, and he's a guy that you wouldn't look twice at if you were walking by him. You wouldn't even think this guy's got this amazing talent or this amazing gift. You wouldn't think that while you see him walking down the street. And after the singing janitor thing, I followed him, and he followed me back, because he had like 10,000. I don't know. He didn't have very many followers then. And he followed me back, and we messaged, and he just like said, hey, thanks for the follow. We just messaged back and forth a few times. He's the humblest, the sweetest, the most deserving. So when you see somebody like that all of a sudden, like, he's been told probably, you need to do this, and yet life has sort of kept him from probably doing some of the things that, and so without social media,
yes,
he's never found. Nobody's going to see him. Nobody's going to see and know. There was actually a video of when the singing janitor video with Howie Mandel in front of it, like duetting it kind of a thing, when he was the singing janitor, like saying something like he needs to go on AGT. This was a couple of years ago, I think. So it's like, if you don't have social media, a guy like that, because you're not going to look at him and go, I bet he can sing.
And he's remember what Simon said. He was like saying, I hope he's good.
I hope he's good.
Yeah.
I hope he's good.
Yeah.
And some of the comments that I thought were so, to me, were like, the comments even made me a little bit choked up and emotional. Like, the video does for sure. But I mean, the comments, people that said, that wasn't an audition, that was a concert. Like, he absolutely, like, to me, that's like one of the highest compliments you can give somebody, because it's basically like, they're saying you could pay to hear that right now. Like that's how good he is. And you know, Simon's face is always, because he can always be so brutal too, but he was just like,
Yeah, he can be like a jerk sometimes.
totally. And that's part of his thing. I mean, that's part of his shtick is that he's going to be like that. But the fact that he knocked everybody's socks off like that and was just so like genuine and just so moved, you know, and
He's so, you could tell, like, he's so humble.
He's
See, this
totally
is the humble
he
word.
said, I was the guy in my bedroom with a Radio Shack stereo belting out songs when he was a kid. Like he's probably been singing, and he did. He said at one point in an interview that he had some like minor vocal training. But like again, you look at him and you're like, well, he's not going to be the lead in the school play probably, but yet he's the nicest guy ever, and he's got this amazing talent. So it's like you never know how those shows go, especially when it gets to the part where everybody starts voting. But I think if you saw the audience's reaction, all walks of life, all colors, all shapes, all sizes were so behind him. And that's, I think, what probably got him so emotional. It was like, it's one thing to have people say nice things on social media. It's another thing to have them like on their feet from almost the minute you start singing, going like, this is, you know, and for him, he's 55 years old. So it's like, you know, like I said, we don't ever stop evolving, right? Like he's probably got, you know, he's probably got the best years of his life ahead of him just because he's now been seen and validated.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't win the show and have like multi-million-dollar recording deals, that's not, I don't think, what's important to him. He wants to make people happy with what he does. And I think that was that first glimpse of it. Like, I can really reach people with this, which is just amazing. You know, it's pretty cool.
Like he's now seen. This is when the social media platform comes into like this positive role into it, because
Right.
I'm sure ever since when he was a little boy, he already has. I mean, I look at singing voice or dancing as it's something that you can learn, but if it's something that you're born with,
Yeah, I
no
agree.
amount of lessons will make you.
You can refine and improve, and somebody who doesn't have the ability can probably be taught to be decent at some things, or you can learn to dance a little bit. But people who have the ability and are phenomenal dancers, they can move a certain way before anybody teaches them anything. They've got the ability, they've got the rhythm, they've got a gift. And somebody who's got that kind of a voice, you might be able to refine certain things about, you know, well, how you use the oxygen in your lungs and how you do this and how you do that. You don't just create that though. You don't go from nothing. When I was a, you know, basketball player and running track and all that, I was the rare white guy who was fast and I could jump, right? Like it was, so I was like stereotypically, I was like breaking the mold a little bit. And I say that because I can say it jokingly because, you know, friends of mine that are black were like, you might be honorary. We might invite you into the club a little bit, you know, but people would come to me and go, how do you jump so high?
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're like, well, can you teach me how to jump? Like, well, there are drills you can do that will maximize your ability. But I cannot tell you that I can make you jump higher than me or higher than Michael Jordan or higher than somebody who can really jump. Because there's just a gift there. You're put together in a certain way. We've all got different giftings.
DNA.
And, it's like, and the hard part, what's that?
DNA.
DNA, yeah. I mean, the reality of it is, yes. And my dad grew up in like a pretty rough area of East LA. And I joked with him at one point and I said, well, Dad, I said, what was it like growing up there? Because we used to go to this restaurant there when I was growing up. I didn't live out here in the desert. I lived in the San Gabriel Valley. So we'd go to this restaurant in East LA, this Mexican restaurant that was phenomenal. But it was right in this neighborhood where he grew up. And it was pretty rough, you know. And I said, what was it like then? He goes, it was the same, just a little different, you know. But it was, you were more worried about knives than guns back then, you know, kind of thing. And I'm like, huh. And he says, I said, so what was it like? And he said, well, you could either fight or you were fast. And I said, which were you? And he goes, you're not a track star by accident. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. You know, he goes, I ran away from more fights than I participated in. And he goes, and then he would joke and go, that's why this is all still intact. You know, that's why I look like this. Yeah,
Okay, that's funny right there. We
Yeah,
might
there
need
was-
to do something content-wise.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that my son was 4 when my dad passed away.
Oh,
And he because my dad had done all this referee basketball stuff for a long time. Like we had a memorial thing. There were like 600 or 800 people that came to the celebration of life. And so there was a little business card. It was a business card that just had a picture of him on it. And with a little saying that he always used to say. And we had them just to give out to people, right? Well, my son's got like 2 of them in his wallet. Like he's got 2 of those little cards with my dad's picture on it in his wallet. And I said, why do you have 2? And he goes, because if I lose one, I want to make sure I always have one with me. I'm like, okay. And we went out, my son and I played golf the other day, and he said, I really wish I could have played golf with Papa. Yeah. And I said, yeah, me too. And I said, the 2 things that I wish you could have played golf with him, and I wish he would have been around to watch you, because he's a pretty good athlete, my son is, watch you do all this stuff that you're doing right now. He would have got a real kick out of that. Yeah. And he knows, like when somebody passes when our kids are too little, it's kind of like up to us to keep that memory alive and keep those stories, right? And I know you being Filipina, it's like family is strong, right? So there's no chance that those stories aren't going to get told at the get-togethers. Like if there's, you're going to tell all those stories. And we do the best we can to do that, but nothing quite seems to take the place of them actually experiencing it. And it's like, that's one of the things that like will get me emotional more than most things, is that I wish that the timing would have been different so that he would have been a little older, when my dad went, as opposed to being so young, because he remembers him and we show him pictures of him, but he doesn't remember him in the role that he would be in if he was still here, as he's playing high school sports and all the stuff that he's doing. He would have got and that's just, that's life. I mean, that's one of those things that.
What was the saying on the card?
So it's an acronym, and it's DFIU, which stood for Don't F It Up.
Oh.
Right? Because what he would do is he would go into a locker room. I'm reaching to get something here to show you.
Oh my God.
This isn't the one that's got his picture on it, but he would go into a locker room, and he would. Because he had this saying, and he never really had to say it out loud. Everybody knew what it meant, right? Mm-hmm. The PG version would be "Don't foul it up," but like that's really not what it meant.
Yeah.
So you'd go to referees, and he'd sit there, and he'd be like, "All right." If he saw him before the game, he'd be like, "All right, have a good game," and then he'd say, "DFIU."
Yeah.
And what he would do is somebody made him this card.
Oh my God.
And I don't know, it's probably backwards because of the selfie camera, but
mirror image.
Yeah. But somebody made him this card, and so he would sit there and he'd walk out of the locker room and he'd just go, and they'd all laugh, and then he'd leave. And then he had this side for the rookies, because they needed to learn better. They needed more help. And so it was a picture of him on the card. I wish I had one. Like, I don't have one in my wallet. But it's a picture of him on the card, just sitting there, like holding up like number 1, and then it had DFIU over here on the side. And so we gave those out, and they were just business card size, and we gave them. We had them on the tables, like at the celebration of life, and just said, if you'd like to take one, go ahead. And there were people like, do you have any more? And there were a lot of people like, college coaches that got one and have it. And I get people send me pictures of like on the wall in their office in a frame, there's one of the cards. And it's like, so it's kind of cool. It's kind of like, there's a lot of people that he made an impact on, not just because of that saying. It's just that saying connects them to him. And it's like, we want to remember.
Yeah, I got associated with him.
Kind of neat.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. You did mention your son's now 19?
No, my daughter's 19. My son's 16.
16. Okay, so 4 years. So it's been 12 years since your dad passed.
Yeah. He passed in 2012.
Well, Father's Day is coming up. If your dad's listening right now, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that, I would thank him for the example. I would thank him for always being there for me the way that I've tried to always be there for my kids. I would tell him that I wish that he was around to play golf with his grandson, and to watch those games be played, and to see how well his granddaughter's doing. But you know me and my beliefs. I think he does know. I think he does know and see what's going on. I probably would just say that thanks for setting an example that was challenging enough to try to fill those footsteps, but not so challenging that it was impossible to do. Like, I think he set an example that was attainable as long as the level of commitment was there for me. And it was, because it's like, you could be Bill Gates's son and he could say, well, just do what I did. Well, that's kind of hard to pull off sometimes. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that like what I do, like I jokingly call the basketball thing the family business because it's something that he was so passionate about. So it's like, it's something that I'm passionate about as well. I don't know if Nick ever wants to be a referee, or it doesn't matter if he does or doesn't. My thing is he's got that connection to his papa, to my dad. And because that connection exists, that'll translate into whatever it is he wants to do, but it's, that's what I would say. I would say, thank you for setting an excellent but attainable example.
Well, this is really amazing. Like, I know that we passed 1 hour already, but
I'll send you an invoice for all the extra time. It's been fun. It actually doesn't. Oh my gosh, what has it been? 2.5 hours? Wow.
Has it really been that long?
It's 4:30, right?
Oh,
Did we start at 2?
Sorry, but
welcome to our TED Talk.
But I just couldn't just cut it.
I think
1 hour.
Yeah, I think it's a podcast at this point. I don't think it's an interview anymore. I think we have a podcast. We might have to do this like once every couple of months or something like that. Although you've asked all the questions, so I don't know. Maybe there's nothing more to learn.
Well, Greg and I have talked about this because I don't know if you remember this when we posted that video, like Greg stepped out of the car because there was this car in the middle of the freeway and he stepped out. That's when
Yes, totally.
And that night we went on
pushing
live.
away and all that, right? To get to
help the guy.
Yep.
Some other guys. So we went on live that night, and then you were in the comment section, and I can only guess that you are also a very private person, like we are. So you sent me a message instead, but then I think it was the same day when we ran into this girl, another Filipino TikToker, and I even jokingly said "cat's out of the bag" because we ran into this Filipino TikToker anyways.
Right. But yeah, I intentionally wasn't going to put in the comments like, hey, I recognize, because I mean, I get it. It's like, and it's not even that. It's not even a matter of it being a secret for any of us. It's just a matter of, there's kids, there's all kinds of stuff involved. So it's like, you have to be responsible about it and all that. But
you did mention there that, if it's possible for us to get together, I mean, it's kind of obvious actually that we do share like the same values in life, and it's actually making me. Greg's actually watching right now.
Oh, is he?
He heard everything. He's actually.
Hey, Greg.
We would love.
Is he your moderator in the background? Like, was he getting ready to end the live if I said something stupid?
He's doing like a screen recording right now, but we would love to actually get together with you one.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we can find a car to push out of the road or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, let's end this now because I didn't even realize that we've been here for almost 3 hours.
The kids are going to be hungry pretty soon. You're going to have to figure out dinner, and all that. So
pretty soon. But
no, thank you for even thinking to have me on. I think it was a lot of fun, and I always enjoy seeing you guys' content. Keep doing what you're doing and stay amazing. And thanks again for thinking about me, and everybody that's listening. Stay safe out there and do something nice for somebody that you don't even know.
Hey, you already took it over. I was gonna do because I do this Clean Catch voice. Like I always end the interview with, because I always start with, "Hi, my name is Jenny. This is my voice, Clean Catch voice." So then it's gonna be your turn now. You're gonna say, "Hi, my name is Dave. This is my voice," and then you can say whatever you want to say about yourself.
Oh my God! Didn't they just do it? Is that what you want me to say? I'll start it. We'll start next. Well, maybe if we do this again, then I can start that way too and say, that's the.
You can. Okay.
No, I want you to sign off. This is your TED Talk, not mine. Even though I bullied you and took over the show a couple times. Sorry, that's my fault.
No, it's okay. Like this conversation is actually really, really nice. Like I'm sure a lot of people were able to get something out of the conversation because it's pretty much
I hope so,
talking
too.
about like life in general, not
Yeah.
just content. I mean, your content is really all about insights about life, you know, words of wisdom and all that.
I try, and what I don't actually have wisdom about, I do my best to fake. So if it's working, then good for me.
Come on, please do me the honor, Dave.
So you want me to say,
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Dave.
hi, my name is Dave. So hi, my name is Dave, and this is my voice. And I want to thank everybody for watching this. And basically what we do here is we just try to make people smile, not take life too seriously. And when you get the opportunity, and let's face it, we all have the opportunity, do something nice for somebody. And I bet you'll find it makes you feel just as good as it makes them feel.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Dave. It's
You bet.
such an honor that you're here. And I'm sorry that we went past.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. It's it was fun, and it was a lot of good information and good conversation. And again, thanks for thinking of me. And hi, Greg, back there in the shadows, whatever you're doing back there. I hope we do get to see each other in person soon too. That'd be a lot of fun.
Let's connect. Like
Okay.
send us a message, or I'll send you a message here on
Yeah, let's do that. All right.
Thank you to everybody who engaged
Take
in the
care.
conversation, all the viewers. Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
see
you guys. Love you guys. Take care.